Welcome, everyone. I am calling the meeting to order. And before we start our regular business as well as the pledge, I want to welcome the 5th grade honor chorus who will be singing a selection for us to start our meeting off in celebration of Black History Month. Here, you sit with Ramona. You come here. So that song Sisa Jamoja, right? What does it mean? You want to talk in my microphone? Can you tell everyone what it means?
It means that we all are one.
And what does that mean to you? We are one.
Well, to me, it means that we all are connected and there's no inequality, and that we all breathe the same.
My name is Isaac.
What? It's okay. Go ahead.
Nope.
It's going to go.
My name is Isaac Petcher, and I go to Columbus Gifted Academy.
My name is Nadia Brown, and I go to Fairmore Elementary.
Thank you. You can go stand back. You guys are going to start the pledge. Weren't our students wonderful? I am actually going to have them now start the Pledge of Allegiance for us, so if everyone will stand. So thank you, parents and families who are here to support your students. If you are a parent or family member, teacher, anyone here to support these kiddos, will you please stand so we can recognize you? Thank you so much for bringing your students down here this evening. And while we would love for you to stick around, you also may leave at this point. Make sure that your kiddos get some good dinner and get their homework done and ready for school tomorrow. We appreciate you all very much. Board members, we have been given the agenda prior to being here today. Thank you, Misty. Will you please call the roll?
President Adair.
Present.
Ms. Beckerly. Present. Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Cole.
Here.
Dr. Pierce.
Present.
Mr. Ragland.
Here.
Vice President Reyes.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Now we will adopt the agenda. To review, we have board recognition. We have public comment this evening, which at this point we have no speakers. We will also hear executive reports from our direct reports. We have some board matters. We will go into executive session. And then we will come back out and do the consent agenda, and then have some board announcements, including Black History Month presentation. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
President Adair.
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
Vice President Reyes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We do have a board resolution, a recognition, and I will turn it over to Board Member Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. I should have had my readers out already. All right. Madam President, it's my honor to recognize February as Career and Technical Education Month. Whereas February is recognized as National Career and Technical Education Month, and whereas Career and Technical Education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employable skills necessary for true career readiness and graduation, by the way. Whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement. And whereas career and technical education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experiences, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions about their academic coursework and pursue established programs of study and career pathways. And whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to addressing the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields, including healthcare, energy, advanced manufacturing, and information technology. And whereas career and technical education prepares students for these and other fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. Now therefore be it resolved that the Columbus School Board of Education hereby recognizes February as Career and Technical Education Month, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education urges all Columbus residents to become familiar with the services and benefits offered by the career and technical education programs in our district and to support and participate in these programs to enhance their individual skills and productivity. Madam President?
The motion? Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And we have lots of members from our team here, so why don't you come on up? And I won't, no one's moving. Come on up. I will say that I was actually out at Fort Hays this past week, where we have a lot of interest from a lot of people in our career technical programs. We had a visit from the Lieutenant Governor. He came and toured, and we have senators and we have other people who are coming in. I will say I was thoroughly impressed with our program, with our students, with all of your work and and your dedication to this program. So, do you want to say anything, Mr. Cole?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam President. I just, again, want to congratulate the yeoman's work that you all do and the professional skills and abilities that you bring every day and share with our youngsters. They were a stellar, awesome group of folks who, as Madam President said, welcomed the Lieutenant Governor. 2 weeks prior to that, we had the opportunity to welcome Congressman Balderson. We hope the opportunity to have Senator Portman join us as well. And I don't just want to acknowledge Fort Hays, I also want to acknowledge our downtown high school as well for their stellar leadership. Give them a hand, please. We have their principal here, we have their stellar leadership leading our law enforcement program. So you guys are doing an awesome job, and I go around the city all the time and say to the city folk that 9 out of every 10 of our youngsters are finishing with credentials, finishing prepared for leadership and service and empowered for success as citizens in the global community. I thank you for your work.
Board Member Beckerly?
I just want to add that having taught at Fort Hays for 8 years under Mr. Ruffin, and I saw firsthand the importance of the careers programs, and that they are critical. And I think that it's incumbent upon us as a board to find ways to increase them, find ways to get more internship opportunities for our students. I had a conversation with our law enforcement fellow at the United College Fund, not the United Negro College Fund luncheon. I don't know if you remember, we spoke. And we need to be creative, and we need to start younger in terms of encouraging our children to consider these options. They're critical. So we have those goals in mind.
We'd love to hear from you guys.
Thank you, Board Member Adair, Vice President Ramona Reyes, and the rest of the board, Dr. Stanford, and everyone at the table. We just want to thank you for the recognition. Dr. Ruffin, Cheryl Watson, Lauren Gardner, and Daphne Durden-Willis worked so hard at the Career Centers, but I also want to recognize that we're in almost every high school, so Jason Johnson should be standing up with us, as well as
The podium.
Walnut Ridge has a very strong, and I know Mr. Chamberlain's here, so Career Tech is in every middle and every high school, and we are trying to expand. And with that, I just want to take the opportunity to introduce our new Career and Technical Director that is coming to help us grow so that we can become better and stronger, and this is Mrs. Celeste Lewis.
Good evening, board members and people in the gallery behind me. I want to just express my gratitude for being the selected candidate for this position. I'm looking forward to working with all the members within our community, as well as our students and staff, to make CTE great. It is a wonderful program offering so much to our students to give them hope for their future and moving ahead without the kind of debt that sometimes they can incur. And so we offer them those opportunities, and we want to make them known and give those opportunities to our students by offering larger and more capacity programs. So you'll be seeing a lot of us maybe at board hearings and things of the nature. So look forward to that and appreciate your support always. Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, just briefly. I want to echo everything that's been said. I love that we are doing career and technical education. It's so important for all of our kids and for their families, and we need to do more. And I think that in a district like ours in particular, there are so many opportunities. I grew up with vocational education, both while I was a student and then 15 years as a board member of a district that did a great deal of what was then called vocational education. And, it provides so many opportunities, none of which are set in stone. They're not mutually exclusive as people once thought they were. College and career, you can, start down a career path and get your college at the same time, sometimes paid for by your employer. The trades are just in desperate shape for new blood. They're careers that pay well, and they're getting older. Their members are dwindling in number and aging, and they'd love to have students who can get into the careers, make really good living, and be able to do other things. So, whatever you need to be able to continue to build and expand and demonstrate to families the opportunities and the importance, please let us know. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Board Member Cole is now going to present you with the resolution. Do you want to talk? Thank you again.
Thank you.
We have no one signed up for public comment this evening, so we will go ahead and move into the executive reports. Are the reports from the superintendent's office this evening?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to start tonight by welcoming our next set of student ambassadors to provide an update to the Board of Education on important events and critical issues at their schools. During each regular business meeting, through the end of the school year, Dr. Dixon is inviting student ambassadors from 2 of our schools to speak publicly before the board about their programs. At the last meeting, we began this new addition to the superintendent's report by hearing from student ambassadors representing Columbus Downtown High School and Walnut Ridge High School. Tonight, we will hear from the ambassadors from East High School and Northland High School. I would like to welcome to the podium the student ambassadors from East High School, Deviante Benjamin and Jayana King. Also, Assistant Principal Patrice DeBose is also here tonight to represent the East High School Tigers.
We have one other student, Tamaine Hill, who will also be going. Hello, my name is Daviante Benjamin, and I represent East High School, a health science academy. For my presentation, I'll be talking about the Mighty Marching Tiger Band and what it has done for our school. The band works to display a great performance to our audience, whether it be in school or out. To do that, they teach us hard work, commitment, and reliance. We work hard for our strong movements. We commit to every practice that we attend, and we rely on each other for support and learning. As well as As a band, we are a second family to all who join. Learning to play an instrument is also beneficial. Students who are willing to play an instrument for the university that they are willing to attend are more likely to get scholarships and funding. As a performing band, we get to perform outside of school too. Recently, our band has performed for the mayor's luncheon. Being one of the members, I experienced all of this, and I'm happy to tell you of my experiences. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tamaine Hill. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Tamaine Hill. I may be known by Tamaine Hilly Washawn Hill, but yeah. Anyway, I am an 11th grade student of East High School. I've been at this school since freshman year of 2017. I met my new IEP teachers from East High School named Ms. Saunders, Ms. Thompson, Ms. Kobach, and Ms. Boyd. They were amazing teachers since 9th grade and 10th grade, until Ms. Boyd had to leave to a new school in the end of 2018 and 2019. My other favorite teachers are in art class with Ms. Counts and Mr. Schwab. And my music teacher is Miss Woods and Mr. Zimmerman. I remember that I made some old and new friends during my freshman year. I did one sport activity. It was bowling. I've been doing bowling for 3 years, and the bowling team was Miss Woods. That's our coach. I was only a freshman who went to the bowling tournament during 2018. And yeah, it was all right. In 10th grade, I joined the Mighty Marching Tiger Band as a saxophone player and went to homecoming for the first time. During my second year of bowling, I asked my good friend Anthony Jones to join me in the bowling season together. In 11th grade, that's where we are right now, I got myself into Fort Hays Career Center for filmmaking, TV, video production. And I started to love it. And now I started to join the National Honor Society, and I became a student ambassador of East High School. And now all that I have left is 12th grade of 2021. I just wanted to say Thank you. Thank you very much. To the staff and the teachers of East High School, I have my thanks for having a wonderful year with you all.
Thank you, Tremaine, for that wonderful speech. Hello, everyone. My name is Gianna King, and I am the Senior Student Ambassador for East High School. There's a million things I could say when it comes to my school, but today I would like to focus on the teachers. I've been at East for 2 years, and throughout that time, I've built very strong relationships with multiple teachers. When you think of a teacher, you think of a person who has a degree and stands in front of a classroom for an hour or so talking about things that might not be relevant to anything going in life. But not at East. The teachers here do more than just teach. For example, in the top right corner of the poster board is a picture of Mrs. Nara. She is our 11th grade English teacher, and she is also my College Credit Plus instructor. This is our second year that our school has been introduced to the College Credit Plus program. Mrs. Nara has worked with us throughout the whole year. The class has given me a head start to college. And Mrs. Nara has done an excellent job with helping us prepare for what it's going to be like in an actual college class. Every day we learn something new, and every week there's a new project or assignment that needs to be due. She goes through everything with us to make sure that we know what we are doing. And she has helped me improve myself as a student and as a writer. Starting the year, I didn't think that I would learn as much as I did. And even though the class is still in session, I know that I'm going to finish the year off feeling more confident than I was starting it. Our teachers play many roles in each student's lives. For example, in the top right, the one underneath the top right one is a picture of Mrs. Woods. She is our school yearbook coordinator, bowling coach, band director, and she is my softball coach. I started softball last year. I was new and I didn't have a clue how to play. Mrs. Woods was very patient with me, and she taught me many things throughout the year. There were many days where I wanted to quit, but she never let that happen. She believed in me and she pushed me to become the best I can be. By the end of the year, I had hit a home run, and even though it was me who hit the ball, it would have never happened if it wasn't for her pushing me every day and believing me and helping me every day. I'm not the only student who has been inspired to do better things at the school thanks to the help of the teachers here at East. These are just 2 examples of the great things that happen here, but there are many more. No matter if the teachers are helping us in the classroom or pushing us to beat our personal record on the field, they are always there and they always keep us motivated to become the best we can be. And as we say every day, at East we are engaged, accountable, scholarly, and we work as a team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mighty Tigers of East High School, for your presentation. I would like to now welcome the student ambassadors from Northland High School, Alonzo Wah, Fatima Henderson Bernard, and Francisca Akatuta? Akochua. Thank you. Thank you very much for correcting me.
Good evening. My name is Alonzo Wall, and I'm a graduating senior at Northland High School. I am here tonight with my colleagues Fatima and Fran to share with you some of the characteristics that makes Northland High School a special place to learn and grow. The first thing that makes Northland special is our diverse students and staff. When you go through the classrooms and hallways of Northland, it is clear that we have a global community that understands and appreciates diversity and teamwork. We have dedicated staff members who really go out of their way to get to know students and provide opportunities that prepare them for life. What also makes Northland unique are our 214 unique course offerings. With 2 career tech pathways in engineering and business, along with 15 dual credit and AP courses, Northland has something for everyone. We are the only high school with Avid classes at each grade level that focus on college and career readiness.
Thank you, Alonzo. What also makes Northland special are our numerous and competitive sports and clubs. I'm a proud member of the 4-time defending City League Championship girls track and field team. And if you're not the athletic type, we also have many different clubs for students like Rocks, The Voice, Link Crew, and my favorite, the Northland STEM Club. Our award-winning STEM Club participates in local, regional, and national competitions each year, and we volunteer at several community events like the National Children's Day, the Ohio State Fair, and the Invention Convention. In just 4 weeks, 30 members of our STEM Club will travel to San Antonio, Texas, to compete in 5 different areas at the National Society of Black Engineers Conference. If you would like to support our STEM Club in any way, you can see our principal, Mr. Johnson, for more information.
Thank you, Fatima. Another way Northland is special is the fact that we have engaged parents and active alumni. Families support Northland through organizations such as the Instrumental Music Parent Association, the STEM Parent Association, and the Parent Boosters. Not only do our parents attend concerts, theater productions, and athletic events, they also participate in specialized meetings to enhance their students' academic success. Our Alumni Foundation, 50 years strong, supports Northland with financial donations, academic awards, and college scholarships. We are also fortunate at Northland to have quite a few community partners who helped our students gain leadership experience. Students participate in leadership camps coordinated by the Easton Foundation. They receive paid summer internships through the STEM Industry Council, and many students use the services of our school-based health clinic, just to name a few.
And lastly, what makes Northland unique is our student success model, which has 3 parts: aspire, achieve, and adapt. Aspire means to have big dreams and not put a limit on our success as students and as citizens.
Achieve means to set meaningful goals and put forth the necessary effort to make those goals a reality.
Adapt means to be willing to be flexible and open to new ideas when the old ones don't work.
So we would like to end our presentation the same way we end our announcements every morning. Aspire, achieve, and adapt. That's the Viking way.
Thank you very, very much, student ambassadors. Assistant Principal DuBose and Principal Johnson, thank you for your leadership in the buildings with our students and making a difference in their lives the way you have. Are there any parents or family members that are here with the students? If you could stand up and be recognized, that'd be awesome. And if there are any teachers who are also from Northland and East High School who have supported the students, would you please stand and be recognized as well? I know I saw one person from East who's... yeah. So again, thank you very, very much, student ambassadors. We are proud to have you speak at our board members, board meetings, to our board members, and we look forward to hearing from your classmates all across the district in the coming weeks. Next up, board members, is our LEDE presentation. I would like to welcome the members of our operations and legal team to present on our community inclusion policy and the district's work with local and economically disadvantaged enterprises, or as we like to refer to them, our LEDE vendors. The community inclusion policy, as adopted by the Columbus Board of Education, is intended to encourage diversity and inclusion in district contracting and procurement by ensuring the fair and equitable participation of local businesses owned by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. I will now turn tonight's presentation over to Chief Operating Officer Maurice Oldham and the team to tell you more about the program.
Thank you, Dr. Stanford. To President Adair, Vice President Reyes, members of the board, Controller McCammon, Intern Auditor Smith, and Deputy Superintendent Dr. Stanford. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to speak on the LEDE Community Inclusion Policy 6400, Local Economically Disadvantaged Enterprises, better known as the LEDE program. Tonight, we will give you an overview of the District Community Inclusion Policy 6400. Tonight's team with me will be Terry Wise, Outreach Coordinator, James Barnes, General Counsel, Annette Maru, Senior Executive Director of Business Operations, myself, Maurice Oldham, Chief Operating Officer. I want to give you some highlights of the Community Inclusion Policy. The policy is race and gender neutral. The intent of the Community Inclusion Policy recognizes that a number of local businesses that support the school district have a competitive disadvantage with respect to contracting and procurement due to their size, social, economical status. The district seeks to ensure the fair and equitable participation of these local businesses. The board has adopted race and gender neutral measures for the participation of local and economically disadvantaged businesses. What I'd like to do, I think is very important, is to give you definitions of what local economically disadvantaged enterprise means, better known as we call the acronym as LEDE within the district. First of all, local. Local is a company must be in business at least 1 year and principal place of business is within Franklin County or more than 50% of its full-time employees resides within the boundaries of the school district. If the company is outside of Franklin County, 50% of the employees must reside within the school boundaries. If a company fall outside the school boundaries, they must present proof of payroll records to validate if they are selected for business within Columbus City Schools, proving they have 50% of their employees within the school boundaries. Economically disadvantaged. It means with respect to enterprise, 51% of business owners must own and control the social and economically disadvantaged individuals and personal net worth determined as disadvantaged by the Federal U.S. Small Business Association. So basically, they must have a net worth by the Small Business Association of $750,000 or less. Enterprise. Enterprise is a sole proprietorship, partnership, company, corporation, or joint venture that has been in business at least 1 year and meet certain size standards established by the Federal United States Small Business Association regulations. So that encompasses local economic disadvantaged enterprise. I want to talk a little bit about good faith efforts to engage LEDE companies. Contractors are required to use good faith efforts to locate and engage LEDs which are ready, willing, and able, and ensure they have a fair and equitable opportunity to participate in contract and procurement activities within the school district. Good faith effort guidelines are posted on the district website, include all district solicitations, and discussed at pre-solicitation meetings. Now I would like to turn the podium over to Terry Wise to talk about Community Inclusion Policy 6400.
Good evening, everyone. The Outreach Services Office was established in 2001 to engage small and disadvantaged businesses in the district's contracting and procurement activities. In 2002, the Board of Education placed a bond initiative on the ballot to rebuild and renovate approximately 46 schools. Local small business owners petitioned the Board of Education to establish a formal policy to guarantee that local small businesses would have fair and equitable access to contracting and procurement opportunities, both as prime and subcontractors with the district. A committee comprised of board members, local vendors, internal staff, community interest groups, and trades associations, drafted the community inclusion policy, and the Board of Education conducted a series of public hearings for feedback of the proposed draft policy. The community inclusion policy was originally adopted in 2004. The Outreach Office serves as a resource center to provide internal staff and external vendors assistance in locating and identifying ready, willing, and able local economically disadvantaged enterprises to compete for contracting and procurement opportunities on district projects. Not only does the Outreach Office notify LEDE vendors of contracting and procurement opportunities, the office also facilitates meetings with LEDE vendors and internal staff and assists large prime contractors in meeting the LEDE goal by encouraging subcontracting partnerships and joint venture initiatives. Vendor information, including the online vendor registration, the LEDE certification affidavit, and information regarding the district's bids, proposals, requests for qualifications, as well as the certified LEDE list, are located on the district's website, and that LEDE list is updated monthly to include all newly certified LEDEs. At this time, I would like to introduce the General Counsel for Columbus City Schools, Mr. James Barnes.
Good evening. When the district and the board began to develop its LEDE program, it had to consider two Supreme Court cases, two United States Supreme Court cases. The first case, the City of Richmond versus Croson. In that case, the city passed an ordinance which established a 30% goal in awarding construction contracts to minorities. The purpose of that ordinance was to rectify or remedy past discrimination of minorities in the construction industry. The court, the United States Supreme Court specifically found that that ordinance was unconstitutional because the contracts were issued on a race and or gender basis. The court used what's called a strict scrutiny test. That test basically means that the statute or ordinance is presumed to be unconstitutional, meaning that the city of Richmond bore the burden of proof to establish that it was constitutional. The court specifically found again that a mere underrepresentation of minorities in a particular sector or industry when compared to general population statistics is not enough to initiate affirmative action. And that decision was rendered in 1989. 6 years later, the U.S. Supreme Court took up yet another case, but it was at the federal level involving a federal program. It used the same strict scrutiny test in that case. In that case, the Department of Transportation had initiated a program whereby those who were receiving prime contracts, those companies were compensated if they subcontracted with minority companies. It was not a quota program. But the court specifically found that, again, the U.S. government could not use race-based or gender-based programs to remedy past discrimination. And what the department, the goal they established was at least 5%, at least 5%. And Adoran, the federal case arising from the U.S. Department of Transportation, applies to any classification that makes race or ethnicity or gender a basis for decision-making. Like Croson, the court held that Again, it could not be used to correct past discrimination. Now, Croson and Andoran do not expressly prohibit programs that allow cities, states, or the federal government to use race as a measure. It simply can't use it as a determinative factor. What that means is that mere outreach and recruitment efforts do not violate either of those cases. And that's what the board's policy does. In short, you can use race and gender as a factor, but not as a quota. The board's policy 6400 specifically reads, this LEDE statement seeks to achieve the goal of awarding to LEDE school district contracts and procurements which represent at least 20% of all dollars spent on an annual basis by the school district for contracting and procurement purposes. It's important that your policy does not mandate or establish a quota. It specifically provides that it will seek to achieve that goal. Again, that's important to avoid running afoul of the U.S. Supreme Court decisions. Therefore, the board's policy intentionally is race and gender neutral to avoid violation of those two Supreme Court cases which prohibit race and gender set-aside programs. And again, as the slide says, the district's LEDE program is not a set-aside program. I now yield to Annette Marood.
Purchasing guidelines are established by Policy 6320. These guidelines are related to the achievement of the LED participation goal at all threshold levels. First, there are no restrictions for purchases less than $10,000. This provides an opportunity for the managers to utilize LED vendors. 3 quotes are required for purchases between $10,000 and $25,000. Managers are encouraged to solicit quotes from LED vendors as part of this process. For all purchases over $25,000, a competitive process is required. Let's look at these processes. First, an invitation to bid. The vendor with the lowest price is awarded the contract. An LED statement is attached to the all bid packages. The statement reads that vendors are encouraged to make a good faith effort to include LED subcontractors. And this statement is included with all bid packages that are published on our website. When a request for proposal or request for qualifications is used, the vendor that provides the best value for the district is selected. As part of the scoring process, points are awarded for LED participation. As stated in Policy 6440, cooperative purchasing may result in savings to the district. The district belongs to several purchasing cooperatives, including state term contracts and master maintenance agreements. LED vendors may be included in these purchasing cooperatives either as a prime vendor or as a subcontractor to primes that are chosen through a cooperative. A single source or sole source vendor is chosen because they are uniquely qualified to provide goods or services. The district chooses a single source vendor over other vendors that provide similar goods or services based on factors such as warranty maintenance, standardization, or the cost that would be incurred if we change suppliers. A sole source vendor is the only vendor capable of providing services, such as a vendor for utilities or the U.S. Postal Service for postage. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Oldham to discuss the progress that the district has made towards achieving our LED goals.
Thank you, Annette. So what you have before you is the LED span over a 6-year period. It's kind of that period of time is from fiscal year 14, which covers the period of 2013-14 all the way up till the period of 2018-19. What you see before you in the period of 2013-14, we were at 6.7% LED participation. If you look at that trend, you see it's an upward trend. In 2017-18, we were at 19.5% LED spend, and this past year, at fiscal year 19, we're at 15% spend. One of the things I want to show in the next slide about that, this is the actual dollar spent in those slides that you see. And what I want to point out to you in slide fiscal year 17-18, where we was at 19.5%, that spend was about $19.9 million that particular year. That's the 2000 fiscal year 18. This year, when we went down to 15%, that physical spend there was $19.1 million. And so again, even though the percent went down, the dollar amount stayed in the $19 million mark. But I just wanted to point that out, and I want to talk about some of the things that we're doing as a district and have been doing as a district to sustain and continue to grow our program. We use, as Annette already talked about, a selection-based criteria for LED participation. We've increased the participation in the scoring from 10% to 20% for LED participation. We provide vendors more times between vendors' meetings, question and answer period, to respond to deadline, and also to build relationships with primes and subcontractor vendors. We continue to have, within the district, greater focus on school-based businesses. We continue to participate in various small business events. The district hosts procurement fairs for all certified LED to meet key decision makers, various department heads within business and operations and throughout the district. These are just a few of the things that we do to try to continue to increase our LED participation. The other thing we do, and I think is very important, is we have individual one-on-one meetings with staff, as well as we have one-on-one meetings with individual organizations. I think that's important because one of the things we try to do is build relationships and try to sustain the program as we move forward. So I just wanted to share those numbers with you to show where we're at. That concludes the LED report, and I was asking any questions that you may have. And I will ask my team to join me back as well.
Before we get questions from the board had asked for this presentation, so I want to thank the superintendent's office for that. And just to kind of let the public know, we asked for it because we feel that it is an important topic, and it goes along with us working on bigger issues of equity for our families and for our district. And so we wanted this to kind of level set us to understand what it is that we need to do. And the board will be moving forward and looking at this policy in a more holistic and strategic way very soon. So I just kind of want to level set the audience to let you know where we're going and why we've asked for this. And now I will see if there's questions from the board. Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the presentation. And again, this is something that has been of considerable interest and priority for us for some years now. But to that effect, as we talk about equity and capacity building, I'm interested in knowing a bit more about how we can expand that within the department itself. How do we grow capacity within this department to be able to identify other LEDEs, be able to help them assist doing more expenditure activities with us, and more importantly, how do we continue to report that out on a committee level, possibly FAC or somewhere else. But the first question is, how do we grow capacity? How do we invest in growing capacity within our organization to identify these types of entities?
I think it's very, to President Dare, to Board Member McCole, I think that's a very great question. And I think it's important as we as an organization continue to look at our data that we have and making sure that as we look at growing the capacity, we tie it back to the strategic plan and look at how, when we look at a staffing model, where we want to grow this program. Right now in the department, as we all know, it's no secret, it's a Department of One, the outreach program. And so therefore, we need to look at and strategize on what is the best approach and what that number look like to grow with our strategy that ties back into the strategic plan. So the reason why I answer the question in that manner, I'm not one who likes to just throw out a number of 5, 6, 7 people. I think it's important to be very strategic about it. And I think it's important to tie it back into where are we trying to move the program, to tie it into our strategic goals, but also to make sure it's something that we can sustain over time.
Okay, so has that conversation been had with the superintendent? And more importantly, are we looking at budgeting that at this point? What those implications could possibly be, what those assumptions could possibly be?
Madam President, to Mr. Cole, those conversations really have not started in earnest yet because, as you well know, we're in a visioning process now with the Portugal graduate, and then we will soon have the results of the curriculum audit with PDK, and it will be at that point in time where the district will then engage in a more robust strategic planning process that will then produce that sort of outcome that we can then begin to align all of our programs to make sure that all of our programs are aligned to our priorities and the focus that we have as a district, and that is our students.
Thank you for that, Mr. Deputy Superintendent. I just want to echo my board president and my other colleagues I've had in private and public conversation with in saying that this is a priority.
Yes.
And we definitely want to look at how we can possibly at least identify some assumptions of capacity expansion in that area.
Board Member Beckerly?
Question for Mr. Barnes. How does the Supreme Court come down on local set-asides that have nothing to do with race or gender? Can we have more teeth in those sorts of set-asides?
Well, I think the court treats discrimination as discrimination, so it really doesn't matter.
Mr. Ragland?
I have several questions. When you disaggregate the spend, who are these contracts going to? Where's the money going specifically?
So for the 2018-19 year, we was at 15%. And the categories that we have in our program is African American, total spend was $10.3 million, 53.7% of the spend. Asian Pacific, total $28,841 for 0.02% of the spend. Caucasian, $5.7 million for 29.8% of the spend. Disadvantaged businesses, $778,139 for 4.1% of the spend. Female, $445,700 for 2.3% of the spend. Hispanic, $1,282,548 for 6.7% of the spend. Indian subcontinent, $24,407 for 2.7% of the spend. Native American, $7,738. And U.S. small business, 8A, $103,860 for 0.5%, for a total spend of $19,192,017.
And what's that percentage of our budget total?
Of the whole district budget?
Yes, sir.
I have to come back with that number. I don't have that with me tonight, sir.
So, is Ms. Wise the first director of this particular area within the district?
Ms. Wise? And let me back up to answer your question a minute ago. When you asked what percent of our budget, our controllable spend, that is 15% of the controllable spend.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay, I got you. Thank you for that. So as far as the department is concerned, is Ms. Wise the first director of the department?
Yes, I assumed the position when the position was created back in 2001.
2009?
One. As outreach coordinator, supervisor A260.
Okay. And so you've been a department of one for 19 years?
Yes.
Okay. A part of my concern is that when there needs to be increases in spending of this nature with particular businesses. It's typically a matter of will. It's not necessarily about the policy in and of itself. It's about the leadership of the institution demanding that results come to bear. She's been a Department of One for 19 years. Now, we can go backwards and forwards and say that we're visioning and doing all of these other things over and over and over and over again. And what happens is time goes on, other things become priority, and we lose the will to do what we need to do in order to see progress in this area. Now, either we're going to get her some staff now so that she can do the job that is required for us to see success in this area, or we're going to continue to do the same thing that we've always done. For me, again, this comes back to our parents and the poverty that they face on a daily basis and what local actually means to them. And I, for one, don't necessarily have the patience to see things continue the way that they've always continued in this area specifically. Now, when we're talking about capacity building, to your point, Board Member Cole, my question for either Ms. Morud or Mr. Odom is about the bundling of our bids and whether or not we are realizing every opportunity to provide capacity building opportunities for our small businesses through our bids themselves. So are we taking a look at every single bid and unbundling it so that more of our businesses have capacity to get smaller pieces of the pie so that in the future they can have grown enough to become bigger players in this game? And what does that process look like? And where can we get better in that?
President Adair to Board Member Ragland. We look at bids and try to unbundle as much as possible. And let me give you a couple of examples of that. Recently, probably November, December, we approved a contract for snow plowing. That's a good example of where we look at that bid every year and try to figure out the best way to give multiple vendors opportunities and still get the service that the district needs. So the snow plowing is bid by areas that represent a pretty small number of schools. So the bidder can bid on one or two areas. I think we had one vendor that only bid on one region. We had several vendors that bid on more than one region or would lump the regions together, but they were still looked at individually when we awarded the contracts. So there's an opportunity for a small vendor who doesn't have the capacity to do half the district or the entire district, but can do a few schools that are right together, and they're able to get to those schools and do it in the time that's needed. So that's one good example. There's a contract on the agenda tonight for packaging supplies. It just so happened that one vendor won all three parts of that contract, and that is an LED vendor. But it was split up and done as a line item bid, so different vendors could bid on the different parts of the contract. So we try to do that as much as we can and as much as it's feasible and as much as we can get efficiency for the district by doing it, because it does provide a lot better opportunities. We also encourage subcontracting for vendors. There's a lot of times when, for some reason, a large vendor might be needed, but somebody local can do their printing or can do small parts of it or can do the hauling away of materials if we're doing demo or whatever that might be. So we try to look at that opportunity too, as well as unbundling of bids.
Thank you for that, ma'am. Are we deliberate in linking many of our certified LEDE businesses with our banking institutions for access to capital. Essentially, what I'm saying is whoever we bank with as a district, are we saying to them, here are some other businesses, local businesses that you might want to talk with about opportunities that would allow you to bank with them and get access to capital? Because part of being a small business owner, if you don't have access to capital, you can't grow and expand your business to even secure larger contracts. So are we deliberate in saying, here's who we bank with, here's who our certified LEDE partners are, can you all just talk to each other and see if there's some opportunities there?
President Adair, Board Member Ragland, that's not been part of our practice. I'll make note of that, but we've not had part of our practice to connect and link to banks. Our practice has been to link to other vendors to try to partnership, not from the capital standpoint. So that's outside of what we've been practicing.
Board Member Ragland, can I pause you and give some colleagues, and I will come back to you, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Dr. Pierce.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation and the work that your department does. I appreciate my board colleagues for asking questions related to capacity and disaggregating figures and around staffing. But we know the key factor in all of this is, do we have LEDE businesses in our community? How are we in Franklin County, in the city of Columbus, growing minority and disadvantaged businesses? That's the key factor in all of this. Do we have the businesses that can do this type of work? So my question is this. Because we have our portrait of a grad coming, because we are focusing on the greatness that our district will achieve in the future, what strategic action do you aspire to take that can effectively engage our community in the work of identifying minority and disadvantaged companies that our district can work with?
President Adair, Board Member Pierce. We had recently put together a collaborative of different small business service providers, such as the City of Columbus, the State of Ohio, who operates the EDGE program, the Small Business Administration, the Central Ohio Transit Authority, Franklin County, their small business program, and we're going to convene a meeting with them in the upcoming weeks to just talk about best practices. They're in a small business collaborative that I currently hold anyway, so I'm going to have them meet with Mr. Odom and Ms. Maru to talk about what they're doing in their respective agencies and some of the challenges that they may face, as well as far as locating small businesses. So I'm looking forward to hosting that meeting for them and getting that necessary feedback from them on how to strengthen not only our program, but their program as well, because really we're serving the same vendor pool and the same vendor community. So another thing that my office has been doing recently is hosting project-specific meetings. When there's a specific project on the horizon, we are coordinating those vendors that have identified themselves to do that scope of work to come to a project-specific meeting, and that way that's the project that's being discussed. And we want to drill down to those businesses to make sure that we don't have people that are there for other things. We want to make sure those project-specific meetings are geared towards whatever RFP or whatever invitation to bid that we have out there, so we can make sure we get the right people in the room to hear what we're looking to contract with. So that's been very helpful. We had one for parent engagement and community engagement, as well as data assessment and leadership team and building team facilitation, and the vendors that were invited to attend that project-specific meeting were vendors that specialized in that type of work. So we want to make sure that when we host things, we're including people that have identified themselves that we can do that work, and here's our resume or our portfolio, and here's what we've done other places.
And then just one additional question. Can you just speak to how have you connected with grassroots organizations such as the NAACP, our Bhutanese Nepali Community Center, to also recruit minority and disadvantaged businesses to work with our district?
Well, I attend different vendor fairs and different small business collaboratives, some of them hosted by many grassroots organizations. I know several years ago, I had the opportunity to meet with the neighborhood associations and different things across the city to talk about the LEDE business owners that might be in the constituency that they serve. So I was able to go to like Franklinton and the Near East Area Commission and many more across the city, the Clintonville Civic Association and different things like that, to talk to them about the program and the importance of having local small business participation.
Thank you.
Board Member Brown?
Thank you. I appreciate the work that you're all doing. As I think you're hearing from the board, this is an area, these are issues that are very important to all of us. And you know, yes, you know, the graph and other information showed that we've improved. You know, and even looking at this last year with a small decline on a percentage basis, you know, we're continuing to move in the right direction, and we need to do that. I agree with the sentiments expressed by my colleagues and Mr. Ragland, who suggests that, you know, one person alone maybe needs some more help, but I think that's something that we might say we would be willing to support that if there was, you know, a need for that, and it's really an administrative question on whether, you know, having more staffing would accomplish the kind of goal that we'd like to see. We also are aware that, you know, certainly in this climate, we have to be aware of the legal context and the legal climate in which we're operating. We want to, you know, my suspicion is that we want to go as far as we're able to, but that, you know, we're not looking to go beyond that. You know, there were some nice dissents written in the Croson case. Justice Marshall in particular, along with Brennan Blackman, wrote, pushing for an intermediate level of scrutiny rather than strict scrutiny. And that would make a big difference. But the court, as I think we all know, has moved over the last 30 years since that time in a much different direction. And I'm not sure we could even get strict scrutiny if the court today were to look at it. So, you know, we have a climate that we're operating within, but I think, you know, what we need to do is take a fresh look and see, are there areas where we can do differently, where we can make some improvements. It's not something we're going to solve tonight, but it's something that, you know, I think that many of us or all of us are probably interested in doing. And you know, the big picture is equity that we've said repeatedly is important to us and is something we need to work on. And this is an important area for us to demonstrate that.
Thank you. Board Member Reyes.
Thank you. I really was just going to say a little bit about what Dr. Pierce stated, so I'll just add a little bit that might also address Board Member Ragland. When we're looking at minority businesses, I think a couple years ago, Ms. Weiss, you did a vendor fair. I think Columbus City Schools did a vendor fair where we invited minority vendors and suppliers to come and talk and look at what our contracts look like. We walked them through the process, correct me?
Right.
Right, we walked them
Small
through the process.
disadvantaged businesses.
Right, so we did a lot LEDE, so I just want to make sure that it's not out there that work hasn't been done, because I do recall inviting LED businesses, talking to them about the process. How do you bid? What are the requirements? How do we increase them? You were actually asking questions from them to see who do you know to include those folks in there. So I just wanted to add the ECDI, Women's Business Center. You talked about this SBA, but there's also the Latino Small Business Association. And I know that private businesses have supplier diversity officers, and those are very small offices also, but they have an opportunity to reach out and have vendors, and maybe as you're planning your next event, ensuring that we invite those folks, because they might have some contacts. Usually from a nonprofit, from a private industry, you're probably going to see more national versus local folks, but there might be an opportunity to get more leads if we include some of these other organizations.
This summer, we hosted a vendor fair with ECDI where we had bankers. We introduced them, the contractors that attended, to the banking world and how to secure a loan through ECDI. So we are having those. In fact, right before the Christmas holiday, we had a vendor fair with capital improvements regarding some of the restroom projects that they had, and we made that specific to small construction contractors to come in and hear about the 6 or 8 restroom and vestibule renovations that we were getting ready to bid on. So those meetings are going on an ongoing basis.
So I just wanted to ensure that even though we might not be inviting our bank, who we bank with, we are inviting people who are experts in lending versus us trying to do or being experts in everything. Our expertise is what is the business of the district and how can we reach out for those specific vendors to provide those services, and then bringing in those other experts into events like that. So I don't know if that answers your question, Member Ragland, but I think we need to ensure that we are experts in what we're experts in.
Thank you. I'll get to you in a second. I have a question. First, I want to say thank you to the whole team tonight. It is hard when you are a department of one, and I think that graph shows that every year we have made improvement, and last year we had a little bit, but money-wise, it was there. I hope you feel valued. I hope you feel appreciated in the work that you do, because it is very important. I think what you're hearing, and I think this is an industry issue, right? How do we rethink this? Because when these laws and rules and policies were created, we're in a different time. So it's time to move and adjust and maybe work with the city, work with the state, figuring out maybe a better way to do it. And I think that you are creative. I can hear it. You're doing it all by yourself. So I just want to take a minute and pause and say thank you to you.
You're welcome.
My question is actually for Mr. Barnes, just to be clear, because I think a lot of people know about the state's programs, the MBE, there's a WBE coming up. And in your remarks, you said that, the Supreme Court said you can't have those. So why is it that the state can do those specialized programs with elements of minority and women, as criteria, but that isn't something that we can do in our policy?
Yeah, I thought what I said was that the courts have their decisions relate to race, gender, and other discriminatory factors being the decision, the primary decision-making of those who implement those programs. So if it can always be a factor, and that's what the state does. They use it as a factor. And in fact, the state does not have mandated percentages. They are called goals also. And I don't think they meet those goals. But it really doesn't matter what you call it. It's what you do in practice. And if you aggressively base the awarding of contracts or other services primarily based on race, gender, or any other discriminatory group, that's what gets you in trouble. It's really not how you word it. It's not word crafting of a policy. It's what you do.
So I just want to be clear. So we cannot do a set aside.
Right. Neither can the state. The state cannot do a set aside. There are different definitions of what a set aside is. Again, it's not what you call it. It's what you do. You can call it a set aside, but you still can't base the awarding of contracts or services primarily based on race or gender. Again, it doesn't matter what you call it.
Ms. Wise, did you want to jump in? Okay.
In 1980, Judge Graham ruled the construction set-aside program as unconstitutional, but upheld the goods and services portion of the state's program, which is 15% set aside. And the EDGE requirements are 5% for construction and 5% for goods and services, which I think that the state has met for 5 consecutive years.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to clarify, because there are a lot of programs, and we call, like to your point, we call them different things and we use these words. And I think it's important for the board and the public to kind of understand when you're hearing them what it actually means. So thank you for your patience, Board Member Ragland. Coming back to you to see if you have additional questions.
Yes, certainly. I do want to answer Board Member Vice President Reyes's question of me. I do think it is important that our banking institution do that work. I'm not asking for the district to do it. I'm asking for the district to be the linkage coordinator, if you will, between the businesses and our banking institution. There's a lot of money in that bank that we're using, and so that's a relationship. They're not doing us a favor. And so there's a two-way street to every relationship. So there's some things that we can ask of them that they are experts in, that they may be able to help us. So yeah, as I agree with you, our strategic partners outside of a banking institution are very important. But yes, I think we should be deliberate in asking our financial institution to do that type of work with some folks where we feel we want to see some improvements in some areas. Because not a lot of governmental entities do that. That's one of the problems with capacity building that I have, is that we don't do everything that we can. We do enough just to keep the masses from burning the house down. That's what we do. We do enough so everybody can shut up. We don't go above and beyond to do the work so businesses like these can move forward. We stop right at the moment where everybody takes a breath and says, okay, we don't have folks standing outside with pitchforks. And that's a part of the problem. And it does trickle down into the homes of our families. That's where it's manifested, because our parents aren't getting jobs because our businesses aren't growing. And so that's what's important to me. The one thing I would like to see, if possible, could you all come back to us with examples of, and I hate to put more work on you, Ms. Wise, but I would like to see examples of school districts specifically from around the country that are doing this better than we are, and let me know what within their departments, what type of infrastructure that they may have, what type of policies that they are implementing, what type of practices that they have going on, so that that may be something that we could look at as we strive to improve. We talk a lot around this table about Council of Great City Schools and some of these other institutions where we are working very diligently with our partners from around the country. This also should be an area of focus as we look to them for best practices. And I would hope that an increase of staff for Ms. Wise would allow for her to do those types of things from a managerial level that we would expect from a department head that has people under her that can do the day-to-day work that this requires. My one last question is regarding the software that the district purchased for Ms. Wise. I believe it was a year or so ago. From my understanding, it was going to take at least a year in order to be fully implemented within the district. That's supposed to help her do her job a bit more efficiently. I'd like a little bit of an update from you, Ms. Wise, on where we are with that software. I know when I visited you last, we were on the phone with the folks, I believe they were from Arizona, and spent about an hour with them talking about the implementation and at a granular level, how it was coming on board and how it would benefit the district and your job specifically. Can you update us on where we are with that and what you might need in order to kind of close that up and really get things going?
Thank you, President Adair, Board Member Ragland. Yes, we did. They were out of Arizona, but they did have a 45% LEDE component to that particular contract. We have entered the contracts that we are tracking, as well as a small purchase spend analysis report. We have our contract managers assigned to those within the various departments. And we are coming on the close of having the weekly meetings from the vendor, and we will be turned over to an account manager probably the first part of March. I had a conference call with them earlier today, so we are finalizing and putting the final touches on the software program where we'll be able to track our LEDE vendors in real time, both in large expenditures as well as small. And I did want to say something about the numbers, how the numbers had declined and went back up. We do have to take into consideration that once we had ended the building program with the last 3 buildings, which was Afrocentric, the Spanish immersion, and the French school, so operations and academics started doing the heavy lifting on that because we didn't have the building program any longer to feed into those numbers. So we put out a full court press within operations and within academics to lift those numbers up, and that's why you see they dipped down after Afrocentric, which I think was the last school that was, built, and then they started to come up as we drove the message down to operations and academic achievement to help reach that goal number.
Thank you. So board members have so many more questions to ask you. And here's the thing. We already know we have this scheduled for a lot deeper discussion. And the point of that is to, at our level, ensure that the policy and governance that we have in place around this is strong enough to do the things that you need to do. So this is going to be another group discussion where we will dig deeper. We will figure out more strategically what it is you guys want to do, what you think we can do. Think outside the box. Let's be bold. And then we will take a look at the policy to ensure that we are able to accomplish it, and if necessary, make changes under the law that we can. So that will be the next steps for this. Now, saying that, did anyone else have a burning question they just had? Okay, Board Member Brown.
It's not a question, it's just a comment.
Okay.
And that is, while I agree with what we're hearing in the sentiment, especially with a lot of James' questions, we have to keep in mind that we're not administration, and that we be mindful of our role versus that of our superintendent and our staff, and what we're asking people to do, and and how we operate.
Absolutely, and that's why it's a partnership in this next conversation, so we need to strategically here, we want to go from administration. We as the board will look at policy. Board Member Cole had some ideas about how to get some more of this stuff in finance, to look at data and things like that. So I this is important. This is how we have to work. We got to work holistically together, right? Break down our teams. I'm really excited about what I saw here today. We had cross teams. I really love that. And so I will ask board members, if you have, in preparation for that meeting, if you have questions, other things you want to know, please get those to the superintendent's office so that we can be prepared. And then team, think outside the box. Like, what do we need? What do we want to do? Talk to your partners, talk to the community, figure out what things that you need us to look at in that policy, because this is going to be a two-way conversation where you will sit at the table with us. Okay. I will turn it back over to you, Deputy Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. And thank you, Mr. Odom, Ms. Wise, Mr. Barnes, and Ms. Marood for the presentation. Finally, the last part of the superintendent's report is that I would like to welcome our capital improvements team to give you an update on our Operation Fix-It renovations and repairs. Operation Fix-It, as you may recall, is a 5-year, $125 million initiative that is targeted towards our deferred maintenance needs in our buildings across the district. This program was funded by voter approval of Issue 57 in 2016. Over the 5-year period, Columbus City Schools is investing bond-backed funds on deferred maintenance projects such as roofing, HVAC, safety and security systems, fire alarms, plumbing, asphalt, concrete, lighting upgrades, and electrical systems. I will now turn the presentation over to Director of Capital Improvements, Alex Trevino, to update you on the progress that we have made on Operation Fix-It since its creation.
Thank you. Good evening. President Adair, Vice President Reyes, members of the board, Controller McCammon, Internal Auditor Smith, Deputy Superintendent Stanford. So I will maybe move just a little bit quicker through my presentation because I don't want to duplicate some of the things that Dr. Stanford just mentioned, but just to kind of quickly recap. So the program is very intentionally designed to tackle deferred maintenance across our facilities. And again, it's a $125 million bond issue, 5-year implementation plan. And it's a little hard to believe that we are at the start of that 4th of those 5 years, but still pretty exciting to be moving so quickly. So again, I won't necessarily read through all the categories again, but you see them in front of you there. So not only is this program designed to tackle deferred maintenance, focused at what we call our legacy facilities. So those are the 64 buildings that our district still operates that have not been through the district's facilities master plan. They are typically 40 or more years old. And again, they've not been renovated or replaced like those facility master plan buildings. And in total, there are 389 projects across those facilities. So then just to dig into the work a little bit, so roofing repairs was certainly one of our focus. This is a category that had 31 planned projects. We started this work very quickly. We know that keeping our buildings dry is very important, both in terms of the learning environment and also protecting that physical asset. So 26 of those planned projects are already complete. 4 additional projects are currently in construction. There is one project that's in design, and actually that project will go out for bids this very week. So that project should move into that construction category very shortly, and that's actually a very intentional hold on our part. So that one last project is our Medina Middle School roofing project, and we've held that project so that we can do it in tandem with the HVAC renovations for that project, which will also occur this summer. And in the photograph on the right-hand side, you're looking at roof replacement that was done this past fall at North Linden Elementary School. So HVAC overhaul is perhaps the project category that has garnered the most attention. Certainly we think we've made a huge impact on those facilities that we've been able to address so far. 45 planned projects across the district. At this time, 25 of those projects are complete. An additional 12 projects are already awarded and currently in construction. There are a few of them where work has already started, where we can do that and not be disruptive to the building. Most of that work will occur over the summer break. You'll notice that I put an asterisk next to the 0 projects in design. And I put that there very intentionally because we do actually have 2 projects that are currently in the proposal phase, but those are not Operation Fix-It projects. They are facility task force projects, but I know to the general public the work probably all looks very similar. So those 2 projects are Dominion and Brookhaven, and those 2 projects we will have contracts to bring forward to the board within the next 2 months or so. We are also rapidly working on getting those final 8 projects ready for next summer installation for 2021. So we anticipate bringing a contract to you at the very next board meeting, March 3rd, which will be for our criteria engineer so that we have those projects ready to roll with plenty of time for planning, again, for summer of 2021. And the picture you see on the right side is a brand new rooftop air handler that was installed this past summer at Gables Elementary School. Our safety and security projects are one of the categories that we were able to recommend implementing at all 64 of our legacy facilities. So these are, again, another category of work that we've tried to roll out pretty aggressively. So at this point, we have 20 of those projects complete. They don't all look like the picture you see in front of you, but the goal is the same. So very simply, the strategy is to enhance building security by requiring our visitors to interface with the main office. Typically that's going to be the school secretary, but sometimes it's an attendance officer, so that we're requiring visitors to, again, interface with somebody, a person at the front office, make sure they go through our visitor management system, and then at that point, so long as they've been cleared by the building staff, then they can move freely about the building, but not beforehand. Right now, unfortunately, many times visitors can get direct access into our building, and it's very difficult to control them at that point. Again, this is one of the project categories that's moving very quickly right now. So the numbers you see here even look different than what we reviewed at NSDP past month. We have 6 projects that are already in construction. There are, so one of those groups of projects of 5 is actually out for bid right now. So I'll put a little plug in for contractors who might be looking for work. Just this week, we advertised a project that includes Mays, Eakin, Duxbury Park, Cassidy, and Woodcrest Elementary. So those 5 buildings will be in one package to implement a security vestibule this summer. There are also 19 additional projects that are in design and will be out for bids within the next 2 months. And that'll leave us with 19 remaining projects that we'll start design work on this fall and would plan to install over summer of 2021. And again, the picture you see in the caption is the security vestibule that was installed at Sherwood Middle School this past summer. Our fire alarm replacement project, we have 34 of these projects planned across the district. And this is one that, again, we tried to advance as quickly as we could. So you'll notice we've made good progress on this particular category. And that was for a couple reasons. So number one, we think security, safety in our buildings is of utmost importance. But this system also has a pretty direct tie into our HVAC systems. So our new HVAC systems are going to be looking for the presence of smoke, and so the ability to shut down air handling equipment to make sure that we're safe in our buildings. So it just kind of made sense to roll these projects out very quickly. And then one of the other things that I think is very noteworthy about this category of projects are that there's been a fairly recent code change. So if you've ever been in one of our buildings when there's been a fire drill or somebody's pulled a fire alarm pull station, what you typically see is a lot of kids holding their ears because the alarm is just as loud as you can imagine, trying to get everybody's attention to get them out of the building. So the code recognized that that can be a little counterproductive, particularly in a K-12 environment. And so our new systems are actually voice activated. So once somebody has either pulled a pull station or a smoke detector has gone off, the system will tone, and then it will play a pre-recorded message. So it's much more calm, but still gets your attention, and make sure that our staff are able to interact with our students to get them safely out of a building. That same system is also able to play pre-recorded messages if the office initiates that. So we're able to announce things like a tornado and the need to shelter for that, a level 2 lockdown, a level 3 lockdown, or a shelter in place. There's also a microphone where the building administration can make any kind of announcement that might be relevant. So again, 24 projects complete. We have 5 additional projects in construction. There's 1 project in design, and we are making preparations right now to move those 4 remaining projects into the design category. Our plumbing upgrades are another one of the categories of work that we've been able to roll out at nearly all of our legacy facilities. 60 planned projects. Obviously, this is one of the ones that we put on the back burner a little bit to make sure we could get our bigger categories of work off the ground, but we're now starting to move into scaling that work. So we have 21 projects that are already either in construction or we're preparing to bring to board for contract approval. We have another 6 projects that are in design that will advertise for bids, I believe, next week. And that will leave us with 27 projects that we will plan to complete over summer of 2021. And then in this picture, you are seeing an image from our Highland Elementary School where we did restroom renovations this previous summer. And so you can see we have some brand new toilet partitions. There is a brand new shiny epoxy resin floor, and then just some general cleanup and paint in the overall space. Our asphalt and concrete category of work, we have 57 planned projects. 26 of those projects have been completed over the past 2 summers. We have 20 projects that just this week, again, I moved from the in design to the construction proposal phase, so we actually just received bids this morning. We still need to do post-bid review with that contractor, but this is a large enough contract that we would plan to bring it through the Neighborhood School Development Partnership Oversight Subcommittee this month, and the plan would be to bring it through to the board at the March 3rd meeting again. And then that will leave us with 11 projects remaining that, again, we would plan to tackle over summer of 2021. And in this picture, you are seeing a picture not long after the asphalt was resurfaced at our Columbus Alternative High School this past summer. Brand new asphalt and brand new striping. Lighting upgrades are another one of the categories of work that we were able to plan for all 64 of our legacy facilities. And we kind of intentionally planned this project in that manner for a couple reasons. So number one, we knew there was an ability to improve lighting, both the general quality, consistency, and the color temperature, which we knew could have an improved impact on the academic spaces, the academic environments. There was also some very practical reasons. So we knew there was a real opportunity with new technology and LED lighting to reduce our operating costs. So working in conjunction with our energy management office, we were able to complete 46 lighting upgrades this prior summer. There are currently 3 additional projects that are in construction right now. Right at the moment, we don't have any projects in design, but we did just start talking about how to address those final 16 projects. And we may tackle those projects this summer, or we may defer them till summer of 2021. And then in the picture, so unfortunately these lighting upgrades don't photograph all that well, so I was able to find one image. This is from our Ridgeview Middle School. So many of our lighting upgrades are simply replacing the lamps, just like the ones that are right above your head, and to the normal user, you wouldn't even notice any difference. But in a few cases, such as this picture, we were able to totally change out the light fixtures, gave this space a whole new look. But to the maintenance team, maybe more importantly, it dramatically reduced the number of lamps. And with the extended lamp life on these, should greatly reduce the amount of maintenance that's required to operate that facility. For electrical systems, we have 34 planned projects. 19 of those projects are complete, and this is one category of work where we knew we had some very antiquated infrastructure, main switch gears and electrical distribution. But in addition to dealing with that very aging infrastructure, to be able to expand air conditioning significantly across our academic facilities, we really needed to be able to increase the capacity of those systems to be able to accommodate those new systems. So this work is very much happening in tandem with our HVAC upgrades. So those 7 projects you see in design are at projects that will be receiving HVAC upgrades this summer. There are no projects in design right now, but we are just about to get those final 8 projects moving along with the HVAC work that I mentioned previously. And then finally, I wanted to wrap up with some statistics that kind of just highlight the accomplishments we've been able to reach at this point. So with those lighting upgrades that I referenced, so we have touched 2.75 million square feet across the district. It's a little hard to believe. It's a lot of square footage. We know we've improved the lighting levels. We have more consistent lighting. We have more consistent color temperature in the buildings. We've also been able to, again, reduce the maintenance. So knowing the extended life of those lamps means there'll be less work for our maintenance and custodial team changing lamps. And then what I think is maybe the most powerful part of this portion is the payback. So all total, we've contributed about $250,000 of Operation Fix-It bond dollars to this program. The maintenance team contributed another $150,000 out of their permanent improvement fund. And again, our energy office was able to secure state grants as well as utility rebates to help cover the remaining cost. And based on our data so far, we are seeing on an annualized basis a reduced electric bill of about $230,000, which means we'll pay back these improvements in about 21 months. And at that point, we'll be cash flow positive. And then finally, just some statistics on our HVAC projects. So of those 25 facilities where we have completed HVAC upgrades at this point, we have a net increase to our air-conditioned classrooms of 601. So 601 rooms that did not previously have air conditioning that do now. And then another 178 classrooms that previously had air conditioning that probably wasn't running optimally. It's been fully renovated, has new controls. And then with our work plan for this summer, another 149 classrooms that don't currently have air conditioning will receive it. And another 178 classrooms will have renovated HVAC systems. And the net result will be when we start the school year in August of 2020, we would expect a net add of 750 classrooms that now have air conditioning. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have at this point.
Board Member Ragland.
Thank you, sir, for a very detailed report. My question is around the lighting. We've had several fires due to lighting fixtures over the last year or so. With the upcoming projects that we have we identified the cause of what some of those fires were in the buildings? And what have we done to kind of rectify that so that we're not having those same issues moving forward?
So President Adair to Board Member Ragland. So I can't necessarily speak to the specifics. I have a general understanding, but our electrical division as well as our energy office largely manage those projects. But I do understand they have identified the root cause of those fires, and they have ensured that we've got a process in place to make sure we don't see a repeat of them.
Dr. Pierce?
Really quick questions. The first question is, how often is our district transparency Operation Fix-It webpage updated?
President Adair to Dr. Pierce. So I appreciate the question because we made sure that, and I forgot, I skipped over my notes on that portion. So the website is fully up to date at this point. We don't necessarily have a prescribed period of time that we update it because the work does fluctuate quite a bit. This time of year, we'll update it fairly frequently because you'll see more and more projects moving into the construction category as we approach summer.
Second question, how do we communicate our progress on projects to students and families attending those particular schools? So I'm thinking of Peach Jar, school announcements, newsletters. How do we proactively communicate those projects?
I can't say that we necessarily have been utilizing Peach Jar. We try to keep building administrators apprised of progress. That can be a little bit difficult over the summer, but certainly it's something we can we can certainly work with our communications team to figure out a better way to address, because it probably is a shortcoming right now.
I would like to suggest that we do that. I think for our families and our students to be informed of the projects that we have planned and the progress that we're making on those projects communicates to them that a safe and secure environment is very important to us and for them, and that we're taking action to make that happen. So I thank you in advance for being able to do that. My third and final question, as I review our district transparency webpage, I see, for example, that Eastmoor has 7 planned projects, but only 2 have been completed across this time frame. If we look at Columbus North International, it has 8 planned projects, 6 of which are underway and 1 that is completed. I see an element of inequity. What are we doing to ensure that we are being equitable in our projects that we have throughout the district?
President Adair, to Dr. Pierce. So I'm trying to think of how to answer the question generally. So we do try to organize the work in a way that makes the most sense in terms of addressing every quadrant of the city. So there are many different factors that come into play. I don't know that I'm going to have any one good answer that's going to answer the question, but what you will see are that, just to address the specific question, so because of the facility task force work that was authorized last year, rather than running projects individually, we grouped every project into one large project. So that's the reason why you'll see at the North Building, you're not going to see any other standalone projects. We lumped everything into one large project to be able to get that work all complete while that building's unoccupied, versus we've taken a very different approach on the other projects where we'll run some of them singularly because we see better pricing that way, and some of them we'll group into areas or quadrants or buildings that are similar in nature. But I don't know if there's any one good answer I could give you about why we've completed work at one building and not at another.
I think our families just appreciate knowing that you have due diligence in ensuring that all of our buildings are getting the repairs that are needed, and we are not sliding or being negligent to any of our buildings, but we are doing it in a strategic way related to pricing. So I appreciate your response, even though it's not the answer that I wanted in terms of all of our buildings being renovated and ready to go.
I mean, ultimately, we wish we could do every project at once, with the snap of the fingers, and unfortunately, it's not that simple.
Paul.
Thank you, Madam President. To that question, so to speak, how are we looking at carryover dollars? So, for example, maybe we've designated, we'll use the example of the $30 million that was designated toward our 6th building renovation efforts, right? If there are savings or carryover opportunity, somebody else cared about the question too, I see. If there were carryover opportunity to other projects, are we identifying that? And is that a part of our, to my colleague's question, equity planning, so to speak?
Sure, President Adair, to Board Member Cole. So we've obviously been tracking the projects all very carefully to make sure we're going to be able to complete the program at or under budget. We've not necessarily spent much time to this point thinking about if there will be carryover. As we enter into this final year of project planning, we are most definitely going to need to start looking hard to see if we will have residual funds, and if there will be residual funds, what we would recommend spending them on.
I think it would be a great priority on our part and proactive on our part to overturn every stone possible.
Agreed.
Yes, sir.
So this question is not to be answered right now and probably not even directed to you. My question, though, is have we thought about what happens when it gets hot again? And what is the plan for the buildings that do not have air conditioning? Because we need to be proactive and figure out what will happen when we hit a 90-degree day in June and August, because it's unacceptable what happened last year. This is not a shock. It will get hot. We have buildings that don't have air conditioning. So let's be proactive and figure out a plan. So I'm saying that publicly because I know that our families, that is a #1 priority with their kiddos in those legacy buildings, and it is hot. So do not answer that now. That's not even probably to you. But that is something that we definitely want to hear about in the future months. We have time. It's still technically winter, even though it's not snowing. Ms. Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. When we attended the NSEP meeting, we kindly asked you if you could come and present where we were with the projects. I think I want to also encourage the board, if you have not looked at the last meeting, minutes from our last meeting, which Mr. Trevino actually put on our board docs. We were almost paper-free. We were really interested in the fact that we were doing savings, that some of the vendors that we had gone out and bid on the contracts actually were being creative. A lot of what the public may not know, a lot of our buildings are old. There are certain things that are 21st century that don't necessarily fit within our buildings. To Dr. Pierce, the North International, you talked to us a little bit about the elevator and making sure that all the kids had capacity, something very difficult to install in a very old building, Wi-Fi. You talked about even the AC systems, how Trane and some of the other bidders have become creative and were giving us a cost savings. So, and I believe the numbers were actually higher than the 281 that you just talked about in the lighting. So just wanted to share that there, maybe when we do this again, talk about how much the savings is. And also talk, I think one of the questions we asked was, do we then go and we can use that for something else? The answer obviously is no. It goes back into ensuring that we do have AC and you prioritize based on comfortable, safe environments for our children. So I don't know if that's a comment or a question or if you wanted to say anything about that, but I was very impressed by the team when we talked about some of the vendors and their creativity and what they're bringing and how they're thinking outside the box and, with the ACs on the top versus going and trying to put in new vents. So I don't know if you want to mention anything about that.
Yeah, President Adair, to Board Member Reyes, I think the one thing I would say is that I do think it's one of the hallmarks of the design-build process. So it's perhaps something that folks are a little uncomfortable with just because it's not quite as familiar as the hard bid projects that people are more familiar with. But it does allow that kind of creativity. It still has oversight, so we still have a district project manager as well as myself reviewing those projects. We also have a contracted services criteria engineer or architect to help guide us in that work to make sure we're getting good results. But it does just allow a level of flexibility that you don't get with those hard bid projects where an engineer is going to put every last detail on a piece of paper and then it's, who's the low bid that's responsive and responsible. So I think the process has worked well for us so far, and that's really been demonstrated by those contract savings that we've seen come back.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what happened. Board Member Brown was in my ear a second. I'm sorry, I totally missed where we were. Everyone's staring. Any more questions?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. Back to you.
Madam President, members of the board, that concludes tonight's presentation of the superintendent's report. Thank you, Mr. Trevino, for your presentation of the Operation Fix-It program.
Good job.
Does the internal auditor have a report?
President Adair, Vice President Reyes, members of the board. The January 23rd ANA meeting was our first meeting of the year, and as usual, we had some administrative activities that we went over. Our calendar was basically set at our last meeting in 2019. So at this meeting, we went over some organizational documents. We went over the committee operations for the year. We also went over the internal auditor's confirmation of independence. And that is something that's important because it's required by the Institute of Internal Auditors that our office be independent in structure and in action. And the way that we demonstrate that independence is first, all of the auditors sign a statement of independence. We look over our responsibilities and we identify any things that might pose a conflict of interest. If there are any identified conflicts of interest, I make sure that I address that either by assigning another auditor to that engagement or even if necessary, outsourcing that work. So far, we haven't had to outsource work, but I have had to kind of reassign people based on any type of conflicts they might have with a family member working for the district or something like that. So that's very important. In addition to that step, the Institute of Internal Audit has basically interprets operational and organizational independence by certain activities that the board does. So they have identified six things that the board or an audit committee is supposed to do to kind of verify that the internal audit function is independent. So the first thing that they require is that the board improves the internal audit charter, that you also improve the risk-based internal audit work plan, you approve the internal audit budget and resource plan, you receive communication from the Chief Audit Executive on the internal audit activity, performance relative to its plan and other matters, you approve decisions regarding the appointment and removal of the Chief Audit Executive, you approve the evaluation of salary of the Chief Audit Executive and other key functions, and you also make appropriate inquiries of management and the Chief Audit Executive to determine whether there are inappropriate scope or resource limitations. Either the board directly or through your audit committee performs all of those functions. So with that said, I was able to confirm that your Office of Internal Audit is operationally and organizationally independent. The purpose of the declaration is to assure the internal audit activity is free from interference in determining the scope of internal audit, performing work, and communicating results. And as I said, the Chief Audit Executive must disclose such interference to the board and discuss the implementations. I can't talk tonight. Implications. And as I discussed with the audit committee, there were no such interference that I had to report to the board or to the committee last year. So with that said, getting to our regular activity, we've released, let me skip to the next page. We've released 2 audits and we reported on a third one, but the committee asked for additional clarification, so that report was not released. The audit reports approved for release, one was over the revenue and accounts receivable function, and another was over the buildings and grounds work order processes. Each report identified areas for improvement, and management has provided a corrective action plan for all items recommended for improvement. The Office of Internal Audit will return to each area to perform a follow-up engagement to determine the effectiveness of the corrective action plan. The reports that were approved have been sent to the board, and a copy is on the district website for public viewing. The engagement presented but not released was over payroll overpayments. The revised report will be presented at the February 27th meeting. Once approved for release, a copy will be forwarded to the board and a copy placed on the district website. At the January meeting, it was attended by some new members. We had President Adair, Vice Chair Beckerly, and Chair Ragland. So thank you all for your attendance and your input, and I look forward to working with you on A&A. The next A&A meeting is February 27th, 2020 at 3:30 in the Cabinet Room. President Adair, this concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Auditor Smith? Board Member Beckerly.
I just want to make it clear that we need to view these reports as an opportunity to understand what's going on in the organization and, determine whether we need to not just create a corrective action, but provide more resources or structure things differently. That the whole process is really an opportunity for discussion and for detailed understanding. And that's going to be critical for us to address some of our deeply entrenched and systemic problems. So I know that Chairman Ragland, Chairman of the Audit Committee, and I are very much interested in utilizing this committee and the efforts of your organization as a light shedding process in order for us to figure out what we need to do. And I just want to say that publicly.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much. The Treasurer's Office.
Thank you, President Adair, Vice President Reyes, and members of the board. And my report's not up. There we go. For the month of January, total revenues were up $33 million, or 6% over plan. Total expenditures were down $16 million, or 3% under plan, leaving a cash balance of $50 million over plan. Some revenue highlights for January. We received 4 property tax advances during the month, putting us $23 million ahead of plan. We will not know until we receive the final settlement, which is expected the first week of March, whether we will remain ahead of plan or not. State funding continues under plan as expected. Other revenues are up $3.6 million for the month and up $9.6 million over plan year to date. The main drivers of this variance are investment income and payment in lieu of taxes. Other revenues only make up 2.4% of the total estimated revenue in the general fund. Here is a breakdown showing what we have received year to date by major category. As you can see here, property taxes and state aid make up over 93% of general fund revenue. Next is a breakdown of all other revenues. It is broken down in 4 areas. Federal revenue, which is the qualified school construction bond interest reimbursement from the Internal Revenue Service. Property tax allocation, which is our homestead and rollback reimbursement. And other revenues, which includes interest revenue and pilot payments. Also is other financing sources, which include advances in and operating transfers in. This is a graph showing the year-to-date revenue variances that I had highlighted earlier. For expenditures, personnel is currently $5 million, or 1.4% under plan year-to-date. Salary and wages were $1.9 million, or 0.8% under plan, while benefits were $3 million, or 3% under plan. Purchase services remain under plan for a total of $8.6 million, or 5.6% overall through January. Community schools remain unchanged at just under $1 million under plan, while all other purchase services were running $7.6 million under plan, or 21%. This graph breaks down our spending by major category. Personnel and charter school expenditures account for 87% of general fund's budget. Both categories have been trending under plan as expected. Here's a breakdown of all other expenditures. This category makes up 12.9% of the general fund budget, with purchase services that excludes charter schools making up 8.9%. Finally, this graph shows year-to-date variances for all of the expenditure categories, showing the variances in personnel, purchase services, and charter schools that I described earlier. To recap, all revenues are up 6%, or $33 million, and expenditures are down 3%, or $16 million year-to-date, resulting in a $50 million current surplus over plan. President Adair, this concludes my report.
So much. Board Member Cole, any comments from the Finance Committee?
Yes, thank you again for the work of the committee, the work of the treasurer in his office, Mr. McCammon in your stead, Mr. Controller, thank you. I just want to make sure I reiterate the importance of state funding, the importance of the fact that we need to continue to advocate on making sure that we're at the doorsteps of our legislators asking for the support that our school district needs and deserves, that we don't have to continue to unfairly, in many instances, leverage the costs to our community and us at the table as well. We are not exempt. We are residents of the city of Columbus as well. So my own property tax is leveraged to ensure the cost of how we fund our schools. But I want to make sure that our community is well aware of that. In addition, I was excited to know that we are above plan. We are above plan in revenue in terms of property tax. So for any of us in the community who need to be a bit more educated on whether or not the school district is at some sort of major loss from property tax, we're actually above plan in property tax revenues. Now, as you saw, some of that is because we have negotiated through pilots payments in lieu of taxes to ensure that the district incurs the cost that it can get. It's not always what we want, but it is what we can get in any of these negotiations. In addition to that, we have the opportunity to leverage cost agreements with property tax revaluations. So when properties are reevaluated by the county auditor, we actually get to argue and negotiate those costs, and that's another way in which we that we recover revenue from property tax for commercial property. So I really want to stress to the community, those in this audience and those who may be listening or viewing, that this is a district that is doing its due diligence as much as the law, the Ohio Revised Code, permits us to do. We are not sitting idle. So again, just wanted to stress, we are really advocating hard to make sure that we're at the doorstep of our legislators, asking for our fair share. Additionally, we are demanding fair share from commercial property owners as well, as we look at recovering revenues for the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. We will move to item 8, or section 8, 8.1. We have a presentation today from students from Walnut Ridge High School who are doing a project as part of the Rotary Service Above Self project.
Evening, Board President Adair, members of the Columbus Board of Education, and all gathered here. My name is Taylor Winborn, and I attend Walnut Ridge High School. I live just off of Courtright Road with my dad and stepmom. My mother lives on the north side, and I visit her frequently. She is disabled, and I take the CODA bus to visit her. About a year ago, I got involved with a group of students at Walnut Ridge who were interested in better transportation. This is important to me because I need to get to school, drill team practice, to work, and to visit my mother. All Columbus students should have access to internships, sports, and activities. The following is the testimony of our group member, Ben Kelson, who could not be here this evening. We would like the Board of Education to support free CODA. This is a proposal that CODA would be free to all Franklin County residents. Currently, 85% of CODA's budget is paid for with a sales tax. Adding a 1 penny tax to every $10 purchase would fund all of CODA. Students at Walnut Ridge got involved with supporting free CODA in 2018. The problem is that all Columbus City students in 9th to 12th grades used to have CODA passes on their student ID. This started in 2006, but in 2016, CODA passes were limited to 11th and 12th graders. In 2018, the CODA passes were limited to 12th graders. CODA passes were an important part of attending Columbus Public Schools. In the fall of 2018, Ridge students got together and researched other cities. We found that in Los Angeles, they had a half fair price for students. One day in January of 2019, we heard that Mr. Bob Weiler proposed free CODA for everyone in the city. All residents would pay a penny every $10. If the citizens of Franklin County were able to get free ride to school and work, they would be more successful. Free buses would benefit inner city students and low-income families. People would be able to have more job opportunities to help their households. We did a survey of the students and staff at Walnut Ridge High School. 96% of people at our school supported free CODA. These are some of the comments people made. Our custodian said we have students waiting until 10 o'clock at night for a ride for sports and activities. It'll help people get places like doctor's appointments. People could do more after-school activities. We could build a new generation of bus riders. I will be able to get a job to support my family. Our friend Ben said, I would have played more sports this year if I had a bus pass. We have already testified directly to the CODA board. We asked Mayor Ginther to support free CODA. We are asking the Board of Education to support our efforts. Free CODA would help the community. More buses mean fewer cars. Fewer cars would mean fewer accidents and less pollution. People might use CODA for late night if they are not able to drive. CODA is a great part of our community. CODA can be even greater by expanding their services and show every city in the United States how to aid our citizens and environment.
Good evening. My bad. Good evening, Board President Adair, members of the Columbus Board of Education, and everyone present. My name is Dominique Jackson, and I'm a junior who attends Walnut Ridge High School, and I'm here today with a few other individuals to ask you for your support for free CODA for all of Franklin County. A little background about me is that for about 2 decades, my grandmother worked for CODA. She seemed to enjoy it until she got sick and retired. About 5 or 6 years ago, my mom and her now ex-partner, my sister and myself continuously rode the CODA bus. We were grateful that the CODA bus got my sister and I to school and my mom and her ex-partner to work. But that money started to add up. At first, my sister and I could ride the bus for free, but it cost $4.50 for a day pass, which means that weekly, both my mom and her ex-partner ended up spending $63 a week. That's around $135 a month, and that's around $1,620 a year. When my sister and I got older, we had to pay for bus fare, which means we had to double up that total. That was a lot of money, and we were barely just getting by. If CODA buses were free, that would be a strain lifted off my people's shoulders. Free CODA will also allow young teens, like myself, to go to work and help their own families with income. Although if teens start working to provide for their families, there isn't a lot of money left for them. Yes, teens can now use the bus to get back and forth to school, work, or sports, but with minimum wage being around $8.55 to $10 an hour, teens aren't really getting huge checks. That means that weekly $63 puts a strain on them financially as well, which is why CODA buses should be free. There are already free buses in places like the Shore North and German Village. They have the privilege to have free CODA, so why can't we expand free CODA to all of Franklin County? As stated on the CODA website, Downtown CPAS provides eligible downtown workers with unlimited access to the entire system of CODA. Thanks to the partnership of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, eligible workers can use the C-Bus at any day, at any time, on any route. There is no cost to employers or employees to participate. There is also research that shows the Ohio State students get to access free CODA for the cost of $13.50 per semester. This seems very unequal. It is a benefit for all of Franklin County if we could just have the privilege of free CODA. Please pass a resolution to support free CODA for students, parents, and families of Columbus City Schools. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nathan Burris. I am a junior in Walnut Ridge High School and Fort Hays Career Center. Recently, the Bushland and Australia has been on fire, killing many wildlife and 26 people. Amazon fires threaten habitats and are burning rainforests, which are used to supply the 20% of Earth's oxygen. That's the Amazon, by the way. But now it only supplies about 6%. The tragic event of climate change are now mounting, and we have a responsibility to take action. Collectively, cars and trucks account for nearly 1/5 of all U.S. emissions, emitting about 24 pounds of carbon dioxide and other global warming gases for every gallon of gas. A typical passenger vehicle emits about 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. This assumes that the average gasoline vehicle on the road has a fuel economy of 22 miles per gallon and drives around 11,500 miles per year. Every gallon of gasoline burned creates about 8,887 grams of CO2. Particulate matter and other pollution have dramatically decreased over the last 40 years, in large parts because of regulations of Clean Air Act in 1970, and is later updated in 2009. There were moves to regulate climate warming greenhouse gases under the Clean Air Act, but as Greta Thunberg and my generation have noted, it's still not enough. A Coda bus can fit about 40 people, and if those people who have cars take the Coda bus instead, then they're going to be saving a lot of, if people who have cars take the buses instead, it will be shrinking the amount of CO2. And again, the number one reason of pollution in the world is vehicle exhaust fumes. If we have free Coda in Franklin County, then people will decide to use their cars less and take the Coda. This means less pollution because Coda has electrical buses and hybrids. Please support free Coda by passing a resolution, help save our environment by promoting mass transit. Thank you.
Good evening, board. My name is Jamarion Cortez Elmore. I'm a student at Warner Ridge High School. I live near Coastside. I am a football player and a wrestler. I have practiced all year long. Warner Ridge is my pride, my home. It is my life. I am here tonight to tell you why free Coda benefits student athletes. Players stay after school and practice until 6 or 7 at night during the school year. In the summer, for 2 days practices, I catch the bus over to Warner Ridge in the morning and stay until the second practice is over. I ride the Coda bus both ways. A Coda pass will help me stop worrying about having the right change or help me be on time every day. I think free Coda is good for the community also. It also helps students get where they need to go. It can be good for family if a student is working and help paying off the bills. Coda could help families save money on gas. I would like to see new buses that ran on solar power. It will really help the environment with less pollution. I hope the Board of Education will give all students the opportunity to get what they need to go, also like work, interviews, or after-school activities. Please support free Coda to improve the world of transportation in Franklin County. Thank you.
Good evening, Columbus Board of Education and guests. We are coming to you because you make the decisions for all Columbus City schools. We hope you will use your authority to be behind us as we fight for having free Coda for more students like us. My name is Jemiah Broom Lane. As a junior attending Warner Ridge High School, I believe free Coda could spread and have a huge impact in Columbus. Like my peers who stand for free Coda with me today, we all hope that you could at least listen to our statements and stand with us on free Coda program. I would like to tell you a little about my personal life. I come from a family of 13, but live with 7. On a school day, my mother spends around 2 hours in the morning driving everyone around either to school or to their bus stops. In my household, it is very hard getting places. Transportation is very hard. My mom has other children as well as me who do activities after school. My week starts at 6:30 in the morning on Mondays, but before me, my mom takes 2 of my younger siblings to Yorktown Middle School for their bus stop at 6:28 a.m. At 6:57 a.m., I have to be at my bus stop. At 8:13 a.m., 4 of my younger siblings have to be at theirs. So I guess you can say my mom plays the school bus driver role in the morning. I am a member of the Walnut Ridge drill team and track team. When I get out of school at 2:30, I stay after until 4:15 to practice for track. I had a job at Popeyes, a 4-hour shift starting at 6 o'clock and ending at 10. Sometimes at 5 p.m., my mom had to pick up my siblings from sports or extra activities, so she wouldn't be able to pick me up right away. It would help a lot if there was a program like Free Coda for my family and for other families that have the same problem. At work, $30 every 2 weeks was taken out of my paycheck for taxes. I would be willing to pay an additional 1 penny on $10 for sales tax. It would be worth it to me and my family. So you ask why Free Coda, and we say because it helps teenagers, adults, the environment, safety, traffic, and would close the income gap between rich and poor.
Thank you so much, students. I'm going to thank you for being part of this project and for being so passionate about advocating for an issue that you believe in. And you are absolutely right. This whole city is talking about this concept of equity. And it does come down to things like providing transportation that matter to people. The things that you shared with us, these personal things, help remind all of the grown-ups in the room, as well as the city, that we sometimes take for granted that we can just jump in our car, where you are not old enough to drive or cannot drive. And it's really important that we take and listen to you, because in order to solve things that this entire city talks about, things like affordable housing and better jobs for people and great public education, it does hinge on things like transportation. All of it is intertwined. And thank you for bringing that to our attention today. I'm going to see if my board members have any questions or comments for you. Yeah, you have grown-ups that helped you do this. I would like them to come up and be with you, and maybe someone can talk about the program that you are involved in.
Good evening. My name is Martha McFerrin-Dea, and I work at Walnut Ridge High School and at Independence High School. And I work with the program of Rotary Service Above Self. And so these students got the program started, or this initiative started under, to fulfill those requirements.
Yes, hi. And thank you for the presentation. It was good. It was well done. And it's an important issue that you selected. It doesn't surprise me that you've got connected with Bob Weiler on this. He's been an advocate for Free Coda for quite some time. And I'm pleased to hear also that you have already been to the Coda board to talk about this. I don't know what the outcome of those conversations were and whether there's going to be some further discussion about it or consideration of the idea. But my question, you've done a great job in talking about the benefits that this would provide to each of you and to your classmates. And to some extent, you went beyond that and talked about the benefits to everybody in the community, to all of the riders. Have you given some thought to how this might benefit Coda and how they can financially afford to do this or finance the provision of free buses? I mean, the question is, who's going to pay Have you, as part of the project, looked at those questions at all?
Okay, my name is Jemiah. I don't know how this thing works where I say my name and I say yours, but sorry, but
You're just fine. Oh, yeah.
But you're observant.
Yes.
I say it's gonna help not only us but CODA as well, because if you look on the roads, me and my peers, we see that there's a lot of cars, and like we mentioned before with the gas situation and the pollution, if it was more buses and less cars, it would help with the environment. And with CODA, I don't know who's going to pay for it, probably CODA, and like I said, with the taxes that are being took out of our paychecks, we would be willing to pay, so.
So you're thinking that community taxpayers
Yes.
might be willing to help?
Yes.
Okay.
So I mentioned it earlier in my speech, but how it would be funded is adding a one tax penny to every $10 purchase. And then it would be able to fund all of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board Member Ragland.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Scotts, for coming down and giving us this presentation. This was outstanding. I have not been driving because of my eye challenges for almost a year now. So I've become quite familiar with alternative modes of transportation, including the C-Bus that allows you to get around downtown very, very easily. And I think is probably a precursor to some sort of a program that is like this. This was exceptional, and thank you, Mr. Chamberlain, and I know Mr. Weiler was here. I also want to thank Rotary for their work in working with our students in the Service Above Self project. Every high school, every middle school participates in this program, and these are the types of public challenges that Service Above Self helps us to come together and try to solve. And you guys are doing precisely what the program was designed to do. I am definitely all for working with these young people in any capacity outside of this role as a board member, be it with the community, be it with CODA, to help you achieve your goals, having learned firsthand what public transportation can mean. They've talked about independence and freedom for folks that otherwise would not have it, because transportation, as we know, is a barrier to a lot of successful outcomes in life. And so I, for one, am pledging my support to help you, and Mr. Chamberlain knows precisely how to get in touch with me so that I can provide some support as you all move forward. So congratulations on this project. Congratulations on coming before the CODA board, coming before this board, and advocating on behalf of other people throughout this city. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. I too echo the sentiment that I offer my support vehemently to ensure that you guys, that we're looking at broader access to affordable transportation in the city and in the county. This was a big issue a couple of years ago. It was with us, but one of my more vocal former colleagues in that, Mary Jo Hudson, who sat right there in that seat and beat the table till her face was red about fairness in transportation for our youngsters. And why isn't it for free, and a free and reduced lunch of 100% in this district? So I fully support you. You guys were outstanding today. Thank you so much for the partners that came to the table and supported you all. You are definitely an example of being a Scott, significant, courageous, outstanding, and talented.
Dr. Pierce.
So I just want to thank you for your presentation, really just highlighting the fact that you all spoke about how you are excellent students, so you're taking care of your business in the classroom, how you're athletes and engaging in sports and representing our district well, how you're also contributing to your family life by helping with your siblings, by helping with the transportation, but you also noted that you have jobs. You are contributing to the great title that our mayor loves to say, we're an opportunity city. And so as an opportunity city, our continued growth hinges on accessible, effective public transportation. And so I thank you all for bringing this issue to us. Now I have 2 questions for you all. My first question is, have you talked to the Transport Workers Union Local 208? Those are our drivers of our COTA buses.
I can tee that up for you, too.
My father is a union steward, so I can help connect you if necessary so you can talk to them. My second question is this. What is the specific ask that you have for this board? Is it that we verbally support you, or is it that we pen a resolution to support you? What is the specific request, action that you want our board to take?
We ask you to pass a resolution.
Thank you.
Vice President Reyes?
Thank you, students. That was wonderful. And as you move up and you go to Congress and senators and all those, learn the verbals and how you will have to address them, because that's all that they'll recognize you in their chambers. So thank you for noting that. Thank you, former board member, former President, Mr. Bob Weiler.
I was not planning on saying anything, but if I could just answer a question or two. President Adair, Board Member Reyes, Dr. Pierce, fellow board members. First of all, we have spoken to the Workers' Union Board, and they're in support, just so you know. Secondly, Judge Brown, the sales tax increase of 0.1% is not necessarily the right funding or the only funding, but that funding itself would raise over $23 million, which is over the $20 million gap that we have now. So as far as the funding, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is the will. And hopefully this board, with your support, would just add another very important force towards trying to make what would be much more equitable for our city, for those who really need the free busing, and those who really would be able to get to their jobs. And I just want to also thank our principal for being here, Principal. And maybe you'd like to just say a word? Nope? Okay. And I think it's late enough. And lastly, I want to just mention Rick Studer, who is our Rotary school outreach person who's made this happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. That wasn't actually my question.
Sorry.
That's okay. So my question kind of goes after Dr. Pierce. I would love to see the language that you'd like us to use and to work with our staff on what that language would be, because these are your words. My question would be, by when would you need it?
As soon as possible.
And then my other question is, who would you be presenting it to? Who else do you feel needs to hear this?
We would be presenting it to, we already presented it to the COTA board. We will be representing ourselves to make sure that they know that we're not stopping until we at least come to like some type of compromise or something. I don't know. Yeah.
And I appreciate you and I relate to you. I come from a family of 9 and my mom has been the bus driver before too.
I wanted to add something to what she said because at Kansas City, they passed something already where buses are already free. So I feel like we can do it too. All of Franklin County can have free buses, so we can all benefit from each other. So we're really just asking for your support.
So would you all be targeting the mayor primarily? Would you be targeting our representative that's coming, that represents Franklin County? Who's your?
The County Board of Commissioners.
We might be able to help
you. All right.
Oh, and I'm part of that. I'm part. They said Columbus City Council too, and I'm part of Youth Council, by the way, too.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Who else would you petition?
Whoever. Whoever is who can help us out, support us.
I just want to give everybody else a forewarning that your guys are coming. That's all, that you're coming. You laid out your game plan. I appreciate it, just giving you a couple pointers as you move and you build this resolution. I think it's great. I think what you're doing is great. Get your game plan, know who you're going to get next, know who's going to be the person or the entity that's able to put this state tax up, who can create this for you. I think, again, echoing some sentiments, you guys are the ones that are going to continue to need these resources, use these resources, and you are taxpayers. If you're already working, you are a taxpayer, so you're not asking for a handout. You're telling our city, our county, our community that you're willing to also contribute to a change. Thank you.
Board Member Beckerly?
everything everyone else has said. But I just wanted to offer or suggest maybe that you probably could or should ask for more than just the resolution. We maybe be able to help you with brainstorming. We may be able to help you with visiting some of these other elected officials. Whatever other ways we can help. Don't be shy and don't be afraid to ask, because this is a very important cause and you are representing it well. And I know I speak for everyone when we say we'd like to join issue with you.
Board Member Brown?
And I was simply going to say that I do know one of the county commissioners. I've been married to her for over 46 years. I will give Marilyn Brown, my wife, a heads up and let her know that you have an intention of going and talking with them, and that she and her office, her staff, can expect to hear from you.
And Board Member Ragland.
I do think that it might be good for us, and I'm not sure who would do this, but we might want to add to their presentation by at least trying to conduct some sort of an impact study on the district. Like, what would that mean to us if our students had access to even more transportation than just the transportation that we provide? Could we see an increase of participation in student athletics or in some of our arts activities and some of the other things? Could we maximize other opportunities for students to stay after school for more academic enrichment? All of those types of things that I think add value to their proposal as students could be a resource that we could equip them with as they go out to the broader community and say, hey, listen, we're just not advocating for this in and of itself. Here's what it would mean to our academic program or to our athletic program or to our arts program. I would hope that there could be some level of interest from the district in helping our students engage at that level.
Thank you, students. We are so proud of you. Go Generation Z. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8.2, resolution to urge reform of Ohio Ed Choice Voucher Program. As some of you may be aware, there's a hot debate going on at the State House just a short walk away, where some even in this room have participated in testimony. So I want to just publicly thank the treasurer, who isn't actually here tonight, but he went down on behalf of our district to provide support, to provide testimony on this issue. Also, our partners with CEA, they went out and had testimony as well, and our legislative director is down there now. And so we are in full force, and to support that, we are offering a resolution this evening, which Board Member Brown will be presenting.
Thank you. This is a very important issue, and obviously it's very timely. The legislature is trying to get a handle on this as we speak. And they're there tonight again, and they'll be there probably every night this week debating this. So we're going to give them some assistance by sending off a resolution conveying our thoughts. The resolution is as follows. It's a resolution to urge reform of Ohio's Ed Choice voucher programs. Whereas Ohio has established the Ed Choice Scholarship Program and an expansion of that program that provides for certain students to receive vouchers, both performance-based as well as some income-based vouchers. What that means is that certain low-performing schools, which may expand hugely in the near future, qualify students in those areas for vouchers, and the income-based vouchers are based upon the level of income in a family. Whereas qualification for performance-based vouchers is based upon a flawed local report card system, whereas performance-based voucher system is paid for by deductions from the school district foundation payments. That is the money that comes to us from the state on a per capita basis, and at the same time, the state has capped the amount Columbus City Schools receives by way of that formula. Whereas under this disparate funding formula and the artificial cap, the state funds voucher students at a higher per pupil level than it does our own in-district students. And whereas the General Assembly, as I said, is currently debating the various aspects of both the performance-based and the income-based voucher programs, and that falls under bills HB 9 and Senate Bill 89. House Bill 9 is already in conference committee, and that's where they're debating that just this evening. Whereas the Columbus Board of Education believes that any voucher program should work toward the elimination of a system that depends upon deductions from money coming to us from the state. Now therefore be it resolved that Columbus City School Board of Education urges the General Assembly to act toward the elimination of the system that depends on deductions, whether on per capita basis or based on any other amount, taking that from our foundation payments. And be it further resolved that we empower our superintendent and her staff to continue to work on our behalf at the General Assembly, and that we ask our superintendent to continue to advocate for what we need here in Columbus City Schools.
It's a motion.
That's the motion.
Second. Discussion.
Call the question.
Okay. Motion, call the roll.
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
No.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We will get that down to the legislators who are debating. Okay, we are actually going to go into executive session. We will, Vice President Reyes will issue the motion, but for those of you that are in the room, we will come back to finish our meeting. Hopefully, this will be a very short executive session. Vice President Reyes, you offer the motion.
I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Education recess into executive session per Section 121.22 G1 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the discipline and dismissal of a public employee.
Seconded.
Yes, seconded. I'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce? Yes. Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.
We'll be back, right?
I mean, but we're coming back. Recess, sorry. Not adjourned. Don't leave. We are back from executive session. All right, we are moving into item 10, which is the consent agenda. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of a member. Does anyone want anything removed at this time? Okay.
Move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Dr. Pierce? Yes. Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly? Yes. Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are now into item 25, announcements. In recognition of Black History Month, normally we do, traditionally, I don't say normally, traditionally we have done various types of resolutions and honored individuals who have left a lasting impression on our district. And tonight I wanted to do something a little different. And that is because, again, just as the students, when they were here talking about transportation and when we talked about LEDE, you're going to hear a lot this year about concepts of equity, prosperity, opportunity, and these are words all of our sister government agencies are using across the city. So the City of Columbus, the County Board of Commissioners in tackling issues of poverty, and even from the business community. And we are part of that government system. So understanding how we all connect is really important. And one thing about being able to achieve this aspiration or this goal of equity is to really understand who we are and where we came from. And so this Black History Month, that's what I would like to do, is take a moment to pause and reflect about the history, the true history of the Columbus School District. And talking about things like racism, segregation, systematic oppression. Because if we can't say these things as leaders, then we can't solve the problem. We have to know where we were in order to know how to go forward. And so I want to show a video. I think we're ready. And this was made by my daughter, and it's really geared towards kiddos. But I hope you enjoy it as well to celebrate Black History Month, our CCS Black History.
It's Mila from Maze! And today we're going to be talking about Inside CCS Black History Month edition. Hey, did you know that our CCS was actually founded in 1845? That is a long time away from us. Did you know that our Columbus looked way different in 1845? It was not like it's now. So let's think of downtown and let's think of Columbus. You know how you think Columbus is big? Columbus was really the size of downtown. It was really small. Black people and white people did not live together. They were separated. In 1847, John Geeds was hired to be our first black teacher. 1853? Let's see. Was there a law about segregation? Yes, there was. There was white schools and black schools. That was a law. We had black kids with black teachers in a black school, white kids with white teachers in a white school. Segregation. In 1877, Everett Waring and Thomas Spencer were actually graduated from the Columbus High School. 1878, Mary Knights was the first African American to graduate Columbus High School with honor. In 1884, James Poindexter was elected to be on our school board of education. 1882, 1909. Checkpoint. Now let's talk. You know they had financial problems with the black schools? Well, they started mixed schools. They didn't really let black teachers into the mixed school. In 1893, there was a law passed that all kids, even blacks and white, had to go to school, which meant there was so much kids in our district. So many people started to come to Columbus. So many. They started to make a school called Champions. Now, that was built, around 1909 by the East neighborhoods. Take our imaginary pen. This area where the black neighborhoods were, I think it was like a map, they drew a line. You see this? It's weird because it doesn't look like a box. They drew a line and took where the black kids lived, literally segregated them. The principal actually hired really good people, really good black teachers from different colleges, and those kids actually got a really good education. Helen Jenkins in 1918 became a teacher at Spring Street. That school was an all-white school. Let's fast forward through time. 1950s and 1960s. So there was a thing called redlining, which was banks kept a little secret. They thought that they would be able to only to black people not lend them money, and also not lend them money to buy houses in certain areas. Judge Duncan in 1979 ordered the school board to desegregate the kids, black kids and white kids. So that means desegregation means that they have to go to school together. That was his order from the School Board of Education. Remember Helen Jenkins? She was a lead witness in the desegregation case. John Middleton was the first superintendent in 1991. In 2016, you guys, the school district built Afrocentric early colleges. Now, this video was so interesting to learn about Black history. So thanks for watching Inside CCS Black History Edition, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!
So she did a good job. Not all of it was, it was hard explaining like what redlining is. What did it mean to have different kids go to different schools? Because for her in the 4th grade, born in 2010, it's all foreign to her. But for us and some people in the room, it's living history. It's history that we have been through. And sometimes we forget what happened 10 years, 20 years down the line. I actually had a lot of fun myself and a lot of interest in reading through old board reports and annual reports. I wish I had more time to put more photos and things in there. But even discussions about career tech. I mean, there was a whole lengthy letter that the school board president wrote against how we shouldn't switch from common schools to allow career tech at one point. And so understanding our history and how we got here today is really important to how we solve issues of equity. And when I first asked Mila to sit and do the video, I said, well, it's for Black history. She goes, oh, I know all about Black history. I'll just talk about Martin Luther King and I got it. And I'm like, no, you don't got it. Do you know who James Poindexter is? Right, this is our own history. And so once she realized that that wasn't it, she was more than happy, as you can tell, to conduct and do this video. And she learned something, and she hopes that her friends and classmates watch it too. So I hope that other board members, if you have some interest in history or something that you would like to dig into, maybe more of these types of videos or not, you can just talk about it. You don't have to do a video. But to kind of share what our history is, especially since this is our 175th year, we have so much history, so much that's really important to consider. So thank you all for indulging me in that, and my daughter Mila, who had a great time. And I'll ask if anyone else wants to make any comments about Black History Month, or any other comments. Vice President Reyes.
Yes, so I appreciate that. It's so I didn't grow up in Columbus, but my husband did, and he one of the things that he actually highlights for me almost monthly is the fact that he used to ride the bus when he was at a different school through the neighborhood that we currently live in that was not desegregated, which is now. So he talks about how he would look at the bus as his other fellow students. There was like 1 or 2 times that they were forced to go down for whatever reason, and they were just in awe about where the other side lived. So it's pretty interesting to hear about that history. But I wanted to just share a couple of points of pride. Also that our Urban Strings, under the direction of Catherine Willis, which has many of our Columbus City Schools students, performed at the reception recently for the Columbus Symphony. So it was, we're hoping that they'll come here and you all have the opportunity to see them perform in one of our meetings. But also the Columbus Youth Symphony performed with the Columbus Symphony. So many of our students had an opportunity to perform around a large crowd and be on the stage and dress up in the tuxedos and nice dresses. So it's kind of nice to watch them. You could tell they were so excited and trying not to move when they're up there. And then the minute they come into the crowd, they're just a whole different kid. But just that creativity and the opportunity that presented for our kids. So thank you, Columbus Symphony, for allowing our kids to participate. And just, you know, the mayor had his address at West High School, where they invited many of our students to participate. Any opportunity that our students have to be highlighted is wonderful. So please continue. Hopefully many of you had an opportunity to see our West High School choir perform and our elementary kids perform, and wonderful comments from our board president, Jennifer Adair. And then to top off the week, we went to the mayor's luncheon at the UNCF and watching our mighty East High School Tigers perform. Always a great time. Our East High School kids talked today. It's just, again, an opportunity for them to be exposed to COSI, to be exposed to another diverse event where they can see our community in a different way and in a different light, and have our community see our kids having a good time and performing and just being engaged with the powers that be. I think it's so nice. So I want to just highlight that.
Any other? Dr. Pierce.
I want to give a big kudos to all of our students, including my daughter Michelle, my little cousin Russell, who's over at Berwick, that are working on their Black History Month presentations. So our schools have a number of different Black History Month programs that are going on this month. I encourage you all to go out and see those programs. In particular, I had the great opportunity to watch the Black History program and celebration over at Independence High School. This program is definitely a history moment. It was started in 2017, proposed by Shayana Hinkleman, along with Nasirla Jones and administration, put together a board of teachers to help the students showcase the talent within the school related to singers, dancers, spoken word, acting, but it always connected back to Black history. So the first year was called Mansa, which celebrated Black kings and queens. The second year it was Sankofa. The third year it was Restore Your Roots and making connections to Africa and other Black diaspora. And then this year it was about justice and injustice. So again, I want to thank our staff, our students, our families that are helping our students learn about the rich history and legacy of Black individuals, not only in our Columbus City School District, but our city, throughout our state, and throughout our world. You are instilling within them a firm acknowledgement that Black history extends far beyond February, that it literally is our history. Even though we highlight it in February, Black history is our history, and it should be incorporated every day of the year. So again, thank you to our educators, families, and students for doing that.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Any other? Board Member Ragland.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, could you upload that photograph for me? This is the Dollars for Scholars program at Champion Middle School. Each of these young men made the honor roll for the first 2 quarters at Champion Middle School and were given a financial reward for their academic success, anywhere from $5 to $40. The young man that got $40 because he not only achieved a 4.0 grade point average, but he also helped another young man who was not on the honor roll the first quarter achieve the honor roll the second quarter. And so I want to thank Principal Stephanie Bland, Dr. Carter Womack, and the team over at Champion Middle School for inviting me to celebrate with these young men over at Champion. Just last week, we spent a lot of time with them there, and they have goals to double the number of young people that are on that stage for next time that they have this, because they're all going to go out and try to help someone for the next time that they have this Dollars for Scholars program. And regarding Black History Month, my thoughts, thank you, number one, Madam President, for taking the time to do that research and work with Mila in putting together that presentation. The one interesting part in there that was, relevant to me was the mention of Judge Duncan and his decision and what it meant, not just to the school district, but to the city itself. And the one thing that I would encourage is that as we broaden out our knowledge about that decision and what it really meant, there are still people around who knew Judge Duncan. And ask some of our elders from around the community what that decision really meant to the city itself. And don't be ashamed to talk about the frustrations that were felt on either side of the fence with that issue. The Black National Anthem says, "We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered." There was bloodshed in this city around some of the decisions that were made in order to make sure that our schools can look the way that they look today. And those are the things that I would encourage us all to never forget. When we remember Black History Month, remember that there were those that gave of themselves in order for us to get here, but never forget that the struggle always continues. And we've discussed some issues tonight around that, the issues around equity. The struggle continues. The issues around Ed Choice, the struggle continues. The issues around LEDE, the struggle continues. And so celebrating Black History Month is always going to be something that should prick our hearts and allow us to confront the issues that we still face today. And I really appreciate you taking that time to do that and providing us with that example. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Board Member Brown, did you have your hand up? Yes. Okay.
Briefly, and first, I too want to thank you and Mila. She was great. She's really got a bright future. And so thank you for that. Looking back at history is just a wonderful thing to do. That was my major in college, and it takes me back in a lot of ways. Black History Month and the talk here, especially Judge Duncan, I knew. Don't have to be that old. It's not just, Yeah, I knew Judge Duncan fairly well. My experience was in Cleveland. That's where I grew up and served many years. And I was there, in person for the Huff riots. And I was actually down there in the neighborhood during parts of that. Looking back, I don't know if it was foolish or not. I was a teenager, but those were communities that I'd spent time in, and needed to be there at that time as well. Judge Frank Battisti in Cleveland was a good friend of the family, my dad and me. He oversaw the Cleveland desegregation cases and spoke with him at great length, even more with him than I ever did with Judge Duncan. But it was just a very brutal experience for lots of people going through this. And Cleveland and its suburbs, it was a tough place to be. Beyond that, Ramona took away, three of, we saw each other a lot. Yes, we did. Yes, at what, 3 events in a row, I think. Yeah. So I don't need to rehash those. I did want to mention, and I also wanted to thank you for the remarks at the State of the City. You did a great job, and I think that was wonderful. There was one other thing. Let it go.
I can come back.
It's okay, yeah.
Okay. Vice President Reyes?
Thank you. I just didn't want to let it pass to ensure that we recognize and celebrate our Black male teachers, coaches, administrators. I want to recognize our females also, but as you all know, it's very difficult to get males, Black male teachers in the education business. I wish we could recognize you all. This room would be full. We are celebrating this month, but we want to make sure that our administrators, our staff, our principals, all those who are role models for our kids, are there for our kids every day, demonstrating. We talk about history. You are making history. Many of you may be the first. It was very interesting to see my godson. He had a Black male teacher at Trevitt, his kindergarten or pre-kindergarten year, and he thought that was something that was the norm, which was not the same for my other godson, who went all his time at Columbus City Schools and never had a Black male teacher other than a coach. So to see the different perspectives from somebody who's been through the system and seeing it from a 6-year-old's eyes is just amazing. It shows that we've made progress, but it shows also how much more we need to do. So I encourage our kids to continue to look at education. We talked about career tech today, but I still feel that we need to encourage our students to look at the education as teachers, administrators. So thank you for all of our staff. We celebrate you today.
And Board Member Cole?
Thank you, Madam
remember?
President. There are two hyphenated words that come to mind for me. The first is self-worth. Self-worth. The second is self-determination. As I think about my own childhood, where I struggled with this idea of self-worth, living in any number of communities where we were epithets as opposed to people, where we were epithets as opposed to respected neighbors. Self-worth, self-determination. 4 to 5 youngsters standing before us saying that they deserve and we need, this community in fact deserves, its most needy deserves accessible transportation. Transportation that's affordable. You talk about the struggle continues. That's unfortunately all we know about Black history is struggle. This false notion that our history began in 1619 on the shores of Virginia, and it did not. Every gift of modernity, every gift of modernization came from African people, whether it was civilization that they brought to Europe at a time they ran Europe for 700 years, whether it was that, to the computer, to the cell phone, to the very piece that makes sure your phone screen is only found on the continent of Africa, nowhere else in the world. This false notion that all of our history is nothing but struggle, when it is not. This self-determination, this self-worth just came to mind. And I'll share my own quote, that we are worthy of our wildest dreams for our greatest selves. I said that some time ago on TV, and I'm saying it again, because any of us who have this idea, and some of us even grown folks struggling with this, as Black folks, we are worthy of our wildest dreams for our greatest selves, if we just believe it, if we love enough, and we work with everybody enough to make sure that that happens and that's realized. So I just had to say that, because Black history is so much more than how much we were slaves and how much we've been suffering de facto segregation and the remnants of that to this day, that have us talking about equity instead of liberation. I want liberation. I want Amistad, give us free. So thank you for this acknowledgement. I want to make sure that we acknowledge Black history, like you said, my sister, in everything that we do, because we are worthy of this. We deserve the title of American. We are entitled to the title of American. We are. And sometimes I think that we just don't know that enough about ourselves to even accept it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry. You remember? Oh, okay.
And it was one of the more important
Oh,
items.
okay. Board Member Brown.
Yes.
Okay.
You can vote in the primary election
yes.
starting tomorrow.
That is
It's
important.
now too late if you haven't registered or if you moved and didn't correct your records. The last day was today, but you can vote beginning tomorrow in person at the Board of Elections or by mail absentee. And you'll be able to vote nearly every day between now and Election Day on March 17th. So please get out and do it. It's an important election. It's not only a presidential primary, but Columbus State is on the ballot. Each of the 7 of us have individually endorsed that issue. And it's an important one for the community.
Thank you for that reminder. That was important.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn now?
I move we adjourn.
Okay, second. Call the roll.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
Vice President Reyes.
Yes.
President Adair.
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Dr. Pierce. Motion carries.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.